shape. This year, for example, Saquon Barkley, I did a spot on him saying don't draft him. But I was saying don't draft him at his ADP. This was a couple weeks ago when we were getting all this word, and he was 5th. He had the top 5 ADP. Now I'm seeing Barkley fall out of the first round. If I could get Barkley outside of the first round, who has legitimate league-winning upside, give me that all day long. Michael Thomas is another example. What about him? You've got him going. I mean, I did a mock draft, and we'll get to this later in the video, about 2 weeks ago on Yahoo, and Michael Thomas was around like the 120 ADP. I didn't even take him. I wanted to see how long he would go for. He just kept sitting there. Nobody wanted to take him. If you could get Michael Thomas, assuming he doesn't go crazy and doesn't get traded and is healthy by late October, and you get 10 games out of Thomas, you're getting in a double-digit round. That's absurd value there. So no player should ever be viewed as undraftable. View them as undraftable at their ADP, sure, but if they fall far enough, look at that as an opportunity, as value, and not someone that you need to stay away from throughout the entire draft. The second mistake on my list, and this is another huge one, is not being flexible, having no flexibility, not being willing to change up your strategy into the draft. We all go into a draft with a certain idea of what we want to do. That's totally understandable. I do the same thing, right? Like, I know what rosters I think look best when I'm talking, standard redraft or PPR redraft leagues, half-point PPR, even super flex or tight end premium, whatever it is, best ball leagues as well. But sometimes you're going to get thrown a curveball. Sometimes people are going to draft players. They're going to reach heavily on players. We'll get to that too. And you're going to be left sitting there being like, man, I really wanted 2 early running backs, but here I have Devontae Adams sitting at the 11th overall pick, or Travis Kelce. I don't like drafting early tight ends, but here's Travis Kelce at the end of the first round, who's legitimately one of the best overall fantasy producers in the league, regardless of position. Those are spots that if you get the opportunity to take it, you gotta grab it. You can't go into something and say, well, I really wanted a second running back here, but all the guys I loved are gone, but I still think I need to go running back heavy to start the draft because that's what people on the internet tell me to do. So what I'm going to do is I'll take a guy with a 3rd round ADP in the earlier mid-second. Don't do that, right? These ADPs generally get pretty sharp. Use aggregate ADPs if you have to, right? Aggregate them from a bunch of different spots. You can do that in a number of areas. And look at those ADPs and figure out where the good spots are. But don't ever refuse to be flexible in these drafts. Don't ever go in with an approach, with a strategy that you're unwilling to budge from, even if the league is gifting you amazing players on a platter each and every round. The third mistake is one that a lot of people already know about, but I'll give you a refresher because not everybody has time to sit around and research fantasy football in the months or weeks leading up to their draft. And this video is for you, right? You have to be willing to draft bench players before you fill your starting lineup, okay? And I'm not just talking about don't draft a kicker to fill out your starting lineup or a defense. You should know that already. I mean, that's as simple as it gets. Kicker's a super volatile position. So is defense. Take shots on guys that are in really high upside spots where other people might be drafting a defense or a kicker. I actually sometimes in leagues that allow it, I will finish a draft without drafting a kicker or a defense because training camp might still be happening. Preseason might still be happening. If that's not the case, then don't do that. But if you're drafting while the preseason's still happening or while we're still in training camp, go ahead and just forego those positions altogether. Load up on as many speculative plays as you can get and see what they do in the preseason, see what they do in training camp. Then, before the season kicks off, drop whoever you need to, add whatever kicker you want, and stream defenses throughout the year. That's such a big thing. Just be willing to stream defenses. You do it with quarterbacks, right? Where you take a guy.
Zoom, I'll be scared. Whoa. Oh, shit. What's going on, everybody? It is the MLB Deeper Dive sort of early edition for Sunday. I am Josh Engelman. Man, I can't even talk to start this day. I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared. I didn't have my screen up, and all of a sudden it was like 3 2, 1, and then I was still not looking at anything, including Zoom or my crunches or my Excel. But big day today, first time ever. Gundacker, you and I are doing a show together, man. This is fun.
Yeah, I didn't even actually realize that. I feel like I know you, but we don't know each other. So this is, let's do it.
Yeah, it's fun, man. This is going to be good. We got a 10 gamer. We got a really nice slate so far. 2 lineups have already trickled in. We got a lot to talk about. But before we do anything, you guys know the drill. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. It's going to be a good time. We've got a lot MLB live before lock coming up directly after this. A little NASCAR coming up in a little bit. And then we got no-hitters going out to rookie pitchers yesterday. That's kind of fun. Can you imagine what that's like?
I mean, yeah, that's got to be incredibly special, but is it not all downhill for a long time between now and then you start stabilizing a little bit more? Because it wasn't like it wasn't a 15 strikeout no-hitter, man. His defense was doing some work. So good for him, though. I mean, I was more like happy for the parents than the pitcher himself. Like, that's just a special moment.
Yeah, dad very stoked in that one. It's got to, like, to think that you get picked up in Rule 5 and then slinging the no-hitter first start. Even if you have to rely on defense a little bit too much, what a story to tell for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you'll never be able to take that away from him. I mean, go for the kid.
That's a lot cooler than anything I'll ever do. That much is for sure. Let's just dive into it if you're ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
All righty. First game up on the docket, Nats and Braves. 5.2 run implied total for the Braves, just 4.3 for the Nats. Paolo Espino and Drew Smyly, 2 guys on the hill. Smyly pulling a little bit of ownership on DraftKings, right at 7%. Last I looked. How do you feel about Smyly against the Nats?
Yeah, Smiley's not generally a pitcher I tend to target to play. The sub 20% carry to righties, xFIP's elevated both sides of play, almost 5 to righties. But it's the Nationals, man. They're like 0-1,000,000 since the trade deadline. So I understand why people would think, chip in a chair territory there. I also, I never like to play weatherman, but kind of keep an eye on it. Looks like there could be something worth watching. And, Josh, Nats and weather are 2 things that are completely unpredictable. So I'm not excited to be here for pitcher. I probably don't have him in my early pool, but I understand it.
Yeah, he showed up in 5% of my sims. So like the ownership makes sense to me. If you're playing 150, you probably have a little bit of him, but he's certainly not anybody I would call a priority. And yeah, Nats weather is definitely a thing. It could be 80 degrees and sunny, and you don't know if that one's going to get postponed.
Yeah.
Any Paolo Espino against the Braves, that doesn't seem like the best spot.
No, absolutely not. I'd be way more invested in the Brave stack here. Going to be a run total well over 4. Ozzy Albies is scorched right now. Freddie Freeman's always really, really solid plays on the south side of 5K. I'm way more invested in the Braves offense here. I will have no Espino.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Braves coming into this one too. Red Sox, to me, pretty clearly the top stack, ignoring any sort of ownership, although I do think they're, at least personally, a little mildly underowned. Rays and Cardinals, my other 2 top stacks. I got the Braves at 4th, but they seem to be neutrally owned. And in particular, Albies and Soler at the top, I think, are going a little underowned. Talk to me a little bit about this Braves lineup against Espino.
Yeah, so it looks like we do have a little bit of positive leverage left over on our top stack tool. We'll see if that moves up and down as some of these Sunday lineups come out. It can get a little weird, but this is a really good lineup. This is a really bad Nats pitching staff, really bad Nats bullpen. Albies in that leadoff spot, a good little switch hitter, hits pretty solid both sides of the plate. You can give me Soler, hits for great power. Espino, since the beginning of last year, has allowed well over a 2 home run per 9 against righties. So Soler fitting right in there if he catches that 2 spot. Freeman's a professional hitter. Austin Riley, I like him. And Adam Duvall, he had a bomb last night, I believe. And this is a Braves lineup. A lot of their guys not named Albies and Freeman have strikeout rates over 25%, but you can kind of neutralize that here because Espino, just an 8% swing and strike rate and a sub 18% overall K rate. So there's, more contact to be had here. So the Braves really, really line up top to bottom. And I think they're I don't want to say underpriced, but we've seen teams have multiple guys over 6K, and this lineup has 1 guy at 5K. So it's not going to be very challenging to full stack them, in my opinion.
No, and they line up well positionally too. Second base, first base, third base, shortstop, 4 of the first 5 spots in the order. So you're even picking off more difficult positions to fill instead of just going outfield out of the gate. We've got a lot, well, maybe not a lot, but we've got a few similar looking teams at the beginning or at the top of the top stack tool. Tampa Bay and St. Louis, spoiler alert, everybody, coming in pretty significantly overowned. The Braves aren't sharing that sort of same problem. So I'm really happy to get to Atlanta today.
Yeah, I think I'm more of a sucker for Brave stack in general. It seems day by day, but I mean, this Nats pitching staff is just the gift that keeps on giving.
Any Nationals for you here going up against Drew Smyly? I think you could one off a couple of these guys. There's no ownership coming in to speak of for the Nats.
Yeah, Drew Smyly still is going to allow a pretty elevated barrel rate, over 40% hard contact rate to lefties, over 1.5 home run per nine to both sides of the plate. Juan Soto, I will never talk anyone down for playing Juan Soto. Josh Bell also fits the bill here for me as well. We're seeing a little bit of power here and there from Yadiel Hernandez. I would like more sample size to believe in it, watch it stabilize. But yeah, I think Juan Soto is always in play. He's 6,200. Maybe people just get spooked by that price point, but I don't think price is necessarily going to be an issue for me today. I think there's plenty of value at each position. Even at pitcher, we might have a couple nuggets. So if Soto falls, he falls. But I'm definitely like, I don't want a full stack Nats here, which kind of like pushes back on me not having Smyly, but the Nats are just bad.
Yeah, like I have them 13th overall. They're not pulling any ownership, so I don't, if you want to get a Juan Soto at 6,200, I'm not going to talk anybody out of it. But there's not a 5-man here for me. I don't have anything else really here. Anything we're missing here for Nats and Braves?
No, just look out for those weird Sunday lineups, man. Sometimes you get an obscure day off. The Braves are still in it. They're trying to hold on to the top of the NL East, so I don't expect them to get lazy. But if the Nats act weird for weather, I know I saw somebody in chat say there's no weather concerns, but with the Nats, sometimes it doesn't have to be raining.
Yeah. It could be raining anything. Somebody could be playing a video game. It's raining in the video game. They're like, oh, we're going to have to postpone this one. It's raining in a video game. Anyway, let's move it on. Pirates and Brewers. Pirates 3.8 run implied total. Brewers 5.2. It's Dylan Peters and Eric Lauer, or at least I believe that's the case. I know one game didn't have a starter, and now I can't remember who it was. It wasn't this one. It was Cubs Marlins. Anyway, Dylan Peters, the flat 4K. Is that a spot you go for value? Let's start there.
Probably not. I think I don't know. Usually I don't need to get that crazy low at pitcher today. I don't fault people for. I mean, Greg was on the kid yesterday from this game, and he actually outscored, I think, Dylan Cease, or at least matched him to make it a plausible pivot. Looks like Peters threw 5 innings on August 7th in his AAA start, but he hasn't gone more than 3 innings in any other appearance since that appearance on July 10th. So maybe we can't bank on him or hold our breath for a lot of pitches. And I don't like to bank on these minor league pitchers coming up and doing well. So I probably stay away from that. If it works, it works. if we get another double no hitter from a random nobody. I'm not there on either pitcher probably. Yeah,
no Eric Lauer for you here against the Pirates either. So 11% owned right now.
Yeah, my pushback. I mean, I get it. The Pirates are bad. They do have some strikeouts and very, very little power. But Lauer's just one of those guys. He's 9K here. He doesn't really bring a ton of strikeout ability. I guess he's got a 1-4 K rate so far to righties. Sub 19% to lefties this season. The swing and strike rate's under 10%. The called strike rate under 16%. I just felt like 80, almost 9Ks. That's kind of on the edge of comfort, especially if he's going to come in at double-digit percentage. It's kind of like one of those spots again where I understand it, but I'm a stone's throw from like a Sonny Gray. Some strikeout pitchers that are not out of reach. So Maybe I'll be able to fine tune that as we get closer and these lineups come out and look better or worse, but he just doesn't kind of like fit the profile of a guy like the roster.
That's fine. His ownership is basically spot on to me. I feel pretty similarly about Lauer as I did for Smyly. He's just going to be a guy that sort of shows up in a little bit. I'm not happy about it. I don't try to get him. He just is kind of there. And that's rarely exciting. I don't have anything fun to say about Eric Lauer, other than the fact that he gets to face a Pirates team that is pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, average to average pitching can beat average hitting and put up solid scores. So, I mean, value is super subjective, especially in baseball. You know, if he gets 16 to 20, he's got you a puncher's chance.
Let's talk a little bit about this Brewers stack. They are one of the 5 teams that are sort of at the top of our top stack tool, and they are pulling basically no ownership. We have them with a 9% chance of being a top stack. That is the 5th highest, but they're basically tied with Atlanta and St. Louis and just no ownership to speak of. What do you want to do with Milwaukee against Dylan Peters?
Yeah, I mean, trusting the top stack tool here is the largest leverage opportunity for a team that should do well. Kind of like the situation last night. I don't know if you caught the Padres were kind of projected highly in the top stack tool because of the unknown of the young pitcher. Kind of in that same situation. So maybe there's a little bit more variance in that number than usual. But yeah, I mean, Dylan Peters is going to be backed up by an average bullpen. The guys that really kind of make you excited to roster is going to be like guys like Willy Adames, Eduardo Escobar, and Avi Garcia. I don't know about you, but I didn't see Christian Yelich in the projected lineup, and I'm happy about that because my optimizer loves giving me way too much, and I always have to adjust it. But this is kind of an odd lineup, right? That this name doesn't give you the warm and fuzzies through and through. But I could walk away with Adames, Escobar, Avi Garcia, and feel like that's a solid start. But it gets a little bit more flimsy when you rely on 2021 Lorenzo Cain and Luis Urias and stuff like that. So like I'm there, but man, I think the leverage might make me trust it a little bit more. But like it wasn't one of my warm and fuzzy spots.
I think we might see them come down a little bit in that top stack odds. Because this is not a strong lineup. I've got it as a 95 weighted runs created plus using the lineup that we have in here right now. So for those that don't know, that is a below average lineup. Yeah. No Yelich matters in terms of pushing that upside. But at the same time, these guys aren't getting any ownership to speak of. Willy Adames, Tyrone Taylor, both at 4.1%. That's the highest mark of anybody. So even if it does come down a little bit, this is going to be a positive leverage situation, no matter what really comes out for the Brewers.
Yeah, like you said, sub-average WRC plus is going to be more of a pitcher's park. So there's enough pushback here for me to feel like according to our numbers here, like I could still leverage at 5% and 6% and I have to max out the leverage. But I'm interested to see how that stabilizes as we get closer to lock.
Can you get to any Pirates bats against Lauer? Does the ownership for Lauer make it a little bit more interesting?
It does. I mean, Lauer does allow power to righties. 172 home run per nine so far this year to righties. Last year was well over 2. You can get into a little Brian Hayes, Brian Reynolds, somebody like that, Jacob Stallings. It's not exciting by any stretch, but I mean, the home runs and the potential power are there. So a couple of one-offs. I don't think I would ever walk into this spot with a 4 or 5 man stack. But like if I fell into a Reynolds or Brian Hayes here and there, it would make sense. And those two are probably like the two. Brian Hayes batting over 300 against lefties since the beginning of last year. OPS is pushing 900, striking out less than average. So he'd probably be the top guy for me.
They are my personal 4th highest leverage stack, but they're 14th out of 20 just overall. It would surprise me if I got to any of these guys, but the Lauer ownership does help. If that starts to rise a little bit, I think you can get there a little bit more. And if you told me that you got a 1 through 5 Pirate stack, I wouldn't freak out in a 150, but it's really hard for me to get to my 14th ranked team with any sort of regularity. That's just too much. Lauer would need 20, 25% ownership at that point for me to really want to take a look at it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. We touched on pitching here. We touched on hitting. Anything else we're missing for Pirates and Brewers?
I'm still a sucker for Hoy Park, man. I feel like he's a little too cheap based on his minor league upside. But again, that's just like a value nugget. I actually got lucky with my infatuation with Hoy Park. I ended up with a lot of him yesterday. And then Jake Myers was thrown into the Astros lineup, and I just full sent to Myers, and he had 2 homers and a grand slam.
Well, that'll work.
Yeah. So thank you, Hoy Park.
Yeah. I mean, if he's going to be outfield shortstop eligible, hitting leadoff and 2K, he just kind of becomes a play by default.
100. Yeah. Leadoff spot is pretty valuable at min price.
Absolutely. All right, we'll keep it moving to Phillies and Reds. This one should give us a lot to talk about. 4.5 run implied total for the Phils, 3.9 for the Reds. Aaron Nola and Sonny Gray. Nola at 10K on DraftKings, 9,500 on FanDuel. He's pulling 37% ownership on DraftKings, 22 on FanDuel. Meanwhile, Sonny Gray at 9,500 on DK, just 9% ownership. So let's start with Nola, since he's obviously the more popular pitcher for anybody else on the slate. How do you manage Nola with 37% ownership?
I mean, on a 10-game slate, that's definitely higher than I would like it. I think the lazy game log watchers might just see 22 in his last start and not realize he was chopping the Dodgers up, and then a rain delay cut that game off, and he was well on his way to breaking the slate. So I definitely am invested in Nola. I think he is when he's on, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. So at 10K, I don't need a whole lot, 25, and I'll take it to the bank. This is a kind of a menacing lineup, perhaps a little bit better at home than on the road, but Citizens Bank Park can play just as friendly. And I mean, Zach Wheeler is as good as most pitchers, man. And they took it to Wheeler. Joey Votto is on a whole different planet right now. So I definitely would be wrestling with the Nola ownership versus how locked in people like Votto and some of these other bats seem. I would like to see 37% decline. I don't think it will, but I would like to see it. But I'm very excited about the Sonny Gray ownership. I definitely think there's leverage to be had there. I'm probably a Sonny truther, and I love getting shots of Sonny Gray not in Citizens Bank Park. He has really elite ground ball stuff and really, really strong strikeout stuff. And one thing about Sonny Gray, he actually strikes out lefties a decent clip higher than righties, and that might help us neutralize our fear of Bryce Harper, who's also pretty locked in right now. And they have I think Hoskins on the IL, so it's a little less powerful of a lineup. So at 9,500, I mean, we talked about Eric Lauer being 10% for $600 cheaper. I mean, Sonny Gray has just was like, I guess not. They got him at 17% top two. So maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think Sonny Gray is just more strikeouts than Lauer, just built in who he is.
So it's really weird when we have situations like this, because if I didn't look at anything else and I just saw Sonny Gray was 9,500 and Eric Lauer was 8,900, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to be very interested in Sonny Gray. And then I see that Lauer has slightly more ownership. It's like, okay, that's going to make sense. And then I run all my sims and I have Eric Lauer ahead of Sonny Gray. And then I look back at our top pitchers tool and we have Eric Lauer ahead of Sonny Gray. And it's like, okay, well, either my brain is wrong or the data is wrong. And I hate situations like this because it doesn't feel right to me to not want to go to Sonny Gray. But at the same time, we are in Philly. There's a big time home run park factors for hitting. The run total for the Phillies at 4.5 against Sonny Gray. Like, that's about as high as it's going to get when Sonny Gray is on the mound. That's a pretty big run total against a guy with his sort of talent. It's a tricky spot, but he clearly has a ceiling that is with the rest of the guys that are pulling the ownership at the top. Giolito, Manaea, Nolan, Erod, all basically 30 to 35% owned. They're the four most expensive guys on the slate. Sonny Gray can be a part of that, and he's only at 9%. I really like him in large field GPPs, regardless of what my numbers are saying.
Nah, I agree. It feels weird to be human versus robot when it's a game of numbers, but I definitely almost snap call Sonny Gray over Eric Lauer versus anybody.
Yeah. And for Nola, I do think he's pulling a little bit too much ownership. To me, out of the four guys at the top, Giolito has separated himself a little bit from the pack. I see Manaea, Nola, and Erod all pretty similar. One showed up in 21% of my stuff, one in 23, one in 24. Like, those are all the exact same play as far as I'm concerned. So it would just make me more likely to grab a little bit more Manaea since he's less owned and a little bit less Nola, but unquestionably one of the better options you can find today.
Full agreement.
Any bats, though? Does the ownership for Nola make you interested in the Reds? Do you want to go to any Phillies? It's tricky spot for hitting.
I think I would. Like, I think the way I'm going to approach some of these bigger known pitchers, I did it yesterday with Dylan Cease to an extent. Like, even if I like the pitcher, so I like Aaron Nola, I'm going to have him. Those of us running 150 lineups, this is why we run 150. We can play both sides here. So I can hedge and leverage myself even. And I can have some red stacks. I can have some Nola here and feel like I got my bases covered, because we've definitely seen the Reds kind of come through. India and Votto are just like tearing it up right now. And, those are the one-offs I'm scared of the most. But yeah, I think I would get to both sides, invested in both sides of this team. And I think both bullpens are very weak as well. So even if, we only got 6 innings from each starter, the stacks might still get bailed out.
4 lefties in the top 6 batters for the Reds sort of opens you up a little bit more. If Nola's going to maintain mid-30s ownership, it's not going to feel great to stack against him, but it's not as if this Reds team is a bad lineup otherwise. This is an above average offense. They just happen to be facing Aaron Nola. So I would be happy to get to a Reds leverage stack or two, but they're not going to grade out well, just raw. Let's see, where do we have them? Oh, they're actually high, a little bit higher in the top stacks tool than I was expecting. I have them a bit lower. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 13th in the top stack tool. No ownership whatsoever coming in, and you get the leverage against Nola. There's a reason to get there, I think. Is there a reason for you to get to the Phillies against Sonny Gray?
Depending on this lineup, yeah. I still think one thing, the Reds bullpen is very weak. So like if Sonny Gray was having one of those days where he couldn't find the strike zone, and sometimes we've seen that out of him, and it makes an early exit, I think there's a strong back half of the game. But even inherently, Sonny Gray does have some average problems and home run problems to righties. I think most of that's isolated to Great American Ballpark, but like you said, Citizens Bank Park still plays well above average in homers. So it might be a sneaky spot for like a JT Realmuto or Andrew McCutchen to dig into those righty power splits.
Yeah, I got Realmuto popping a little bit more than I was expecting at 4,500 today. Not my worst catcher option in the world. If he's only going to be 5% owned, I'm willing to take that shot. Phillies as a stack are basically middle of the pack for me. I don't want to get too crazy. I would need to see more ownership going to Gray for me to want to target against Gray. And that's just doesn't appear to be happening for reasons that you and I both don't understand. 9% owned Sonny Gray today.
Yeah.
Anything else here, Phillies or Reds?
Nah, the 8.5 total here. I'll see if that move up a little bit, but I mean, if you didn't tell me the pitchers, I would think 8.5 is a little light for these two teams, but I guess these are probably the 2 best pitchers they could throw out here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned it at the start, but I'm going to mention it again at 11 a.m. coming up directly after this. Emac and Terry doing a little bit of MLB Live before lock. Now, don't freak out, everybody. That's going to be an hour before lock actually happens. We're aware. We're coming in early for baseball today because at noon Eastern time, NASCAR Live before lock with Jason and Phil. Got to fill that one in. So they'll be going an hour, taking you all the way up to the NASCAR lock. And from a free content perspective today, well, you don't get any because it's Sunday. Chris, appreciate you changing that on my run sheet from copying in what was in there for Saturday to today's no free content. So I was about to tell you guys that ownership was free, but guess what? It isn't. So sorry, guys. No free content. Thank you to Chris behind the virtual glass for us. And now we move on to an ugly one. And these guys ruined my Friday. I believe they might have ruined yours as well. Marlins and Cubs, 3.8 run implied total for the Marlins, 3.4 for the Cubs. We know it's Alec Mills for the Cubs. I've seen Alicia Hernandez for the Marlins, and that's what I'm going with right now. But this game popping off on Friday was an incredibly big irritant to me, followed up with that Brewers postponement. I had a terrible Friday. Did you enjoy the Friday experience of Marlins Cubs more than I did?
Not at all. So at first I was going to have a modest amount of Adbert Alzolay, and then some rain started popping up and I had to connect dots elsewhere to kind of give up. So I didn't have too much risk affected by rain. I was like, man, Alzolay has almost a nut matchup, nut park, bunch of righties, and man, it turned into Coors South. I don't know if he was tipping or what, but they lit him up like a Christmas tree.
It was bad, man. I felt like they were hitting off of a tee. I opened up my phone and I was like, oh, cool. Everything that we thought about. I talked about that slate twice. I did the same show with Adam that day. So we did like 3 hours worth of the slate. We paid no mind to the Marlins or the Cubs as offenses. And immediately the Marlins had 10 plus runs. And I think it was the bottom of the third. Oh God, I hate when that stuff happens. How does it look for you today? Mills pulling 14% ownership. We don't have Hernandez in our ownership yet. I don't know how deep he can go, but this is a pretty nice matchup on both sides. Both offenses are terrible. Let's start with the known quantity. What do you want to do with Alec Mills?
So Alec Mills is the original no-hitter, 5 strikeout guy. Pure contact dude, doesn't really generate strikeouts, and because of the lack of strikeout propensity, he really feels like he's not going to be a median upside guy. The Marlins are still weak. Excuse me. the Marlins are usually weak.
Yeah.
So I kind of stay away from Alec Mills, just generally speaking. Like if I don't see 20-30 as a common range of outcome, I kind of just don't do it. But at 7,300, like there's always a world where he's going to get to 7 innings on 80 pitches because he has 2 strikeouts against a pitcher. So I wouldn't talk anyone down, but it's not exciting.
Can you roster Alicia Hernandez at 8,600 today? Because this Cubs lineup has all of the strikeouts in it.
Yeah. This is actually a lot more exciting. So chat, I want you guys to take this with a grain of salt. But I mean, if you liked Aaron Ashby yesterday, you're gonna love some Alicia Hernandez. So first of all, this projected Cubs lineup has basically a collective 30% K rate, 3 through 9. Only Matt Duffy, Ortega at 21% or less. Alicia Hernandez in his last minor league start, August 10th, 5 innings, 10 strikeouts. That's nuts. He had more of a fly ball rate here, but he is projecting as a big strikeout guy. The start before that, 4 innings, 5 strikeouts, so still over a strikeout per inning. In his last 9 innings in the minors, 3 hits, 0 walks. You just don't see that. So if this is a minor league team, and this is a great minor league pitcher right now, so I'm on board. 8,600 feels like they didn't even leave us that chance to go get a crazy start from a 6-7K guy. But yeah, 8,600. I definitely do like this matchup, and I got to be honest. If we look at these numbers, we look at what he's coming into this game with. Look at this park. How do I like Eric Lauer more than him? Like I just feel like he's more exciting to go out there and nab me some strikeouts.
Yeah, so I ran my data, and Hernandez showed up in 19% of my lineups. I only have him in for 4 1/3. I tried to be at least a little bit of pessimistic since he's still working his way back, but there's just so much strikeout upside here. If he happens to go a little bit deeper in the game, I assume it's because it's going well. Like he's not going to throw 5 1/3 and for him to go deeper in this game, it's because he's pitching well, which is a double benefit for me. This Cubs lineup, as you mentioned, it's just strikeout upon strikeout upon strikeout. Once you get through the top 2, it's a massive pitcher's park. I think all signs point to Hernandez being one of the best options you can get to today in the sort of mid-tier. I'm really anxious to see what his ownership ends up coming in at, because that's really going to dictate everything. My first thought would be that he doesn't pull all that much ownership, but at the same time, is anybody are we really going to have people prioritizing Lauer over him? Probably not, right?
I think it really just depends on where people getting their information, right? We're not even sure Alicia Hernandez is starting, but he is, because he's got to get activated from the 60-day IL. People are going to see the 60-day IL English and get nervous on that, and not think he's fully stretched out. And I'm not guaranteeing that he is fully stretched out, but he got to 5 innings in his last start with 10 strikeouts. Right. And from what we've seen from him in the major league level before he went on the 6-day, he was a strikeout guy. He threw darts. He doesn't walk people. He throws bullets. He's fastball, slider. So, a good team will catch up to that eventually, but this Cubs is far from a good team.
Well, let's at least talk a little bit about these offenses who popped off on Friday. What do we do now for today? Can we go to the Marlins? Can we go to the Cubs? Alec Mills at 14% ownership. Do you want to be on the opposite side of that? How do we manage these teams?
So, I mean, just looking at, I'll say K rates here, right? Alicia Hernandez is at least going to challenge you to make contact. Alec Mills is purposely going to induce contact. So you put the ball in play. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. So I don't hate the thought of understand there's an outlier performance for the Marlins to find some holes against Mills, and then maybe the bullpen bleeds through a little bit, but it's still the Marlins, man. We got to believe that's a once in a month type of performance from that team. So there's a lot of things going against them. We did just get that lineup confirmed. Rojas, Chisholm, looks like it's pretty par for the course here. It's almost exactly Jorge Alfaro is the difference. Other than that, it's the projected lineup. So it's just not a stacked lineup by any stretch.
Yeah, well, there wasn't anything they were really going to be doing anyway to turn that into a different lineup. This is just going to be more nameless, faceless guys as far as I'm concerned. So no real change for me. I don't want to get here for offense. It's the same thing that I said on Friday. Just because it happened differently then doesn't make me want to change my thought process here. These are two putrid offenses with very little redeeming qualities in comparison to some of these other teams. When we're talking about two teams with sub 4 run totals, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 just off like looking really quickly that are 5 or more. We're just not in the same sort of realm. I don't want to go to the Marlins. I don't want to go to the Cubs. We're talking about 2 of the 4 worst teams in the top stack tool. It's just not for me. Unless Alec Mills starts pulling like, again, the same way we said it before, if he starts getting in like the 20s in ownership where you can make a case to be on the opposite side, that works. I can't roster bats here. It's gross.
Yeah, it's not like we really want to target power in this park. It's not going to allow it. And Mills is still a big ground ball guy. So
yeah,
it's not exciting.
No, it is not. Tigers and Guardians. It's a 4.6 run implied total for the Tigers, 4.8 for Cleveland. Drew Hutchison, Tristan McKenzie. Saw a little bit of Tristan McKenzie talk in our premium Slack before this one started. He is at 14% ownership, which feels it's a tad high for me. But how do you feel about McKenzie?
Yeah, so every time I get in the corner where I defend McKenzie's strikeout rate, we get that -1 or the -3. But you're a simulation guy, right? You run this simulation 1,000 times. That 1 in 4K rate is going to eat every now and then against the Tigers. So he would always make the player pool because of that. But if his ownership starts rising a little bit more than it probably should versus how often he's going to hit that, then I get a little bit more skittish. Maybe I look at the Tigers because he does have a propensity to lose a strike zone, start walking guys, and he gives up power to righties. So this line is going to be pretty split. But Jonathan Scope, Miggy Cabrera, they've got a puncher's chance to get into one. But price, just price considered and ranges of outcomes, there's a world where 25% K rate at 7,800 lives here.
Showed up in 8% of my stuff. I think 14% is just slightly high, but clearly a guy that you need to get to. Would you rather have him or Mills? They have basically the same ownership, and they are separated by $500. McKenzie's slightly more expensive.
Yeah, I'd probably have to bet on the strikeout just to kind of dip into the ceiling here. So McKenzie.
Okay. Yeah, to me, they're a coin flip. The game script of Marlins Cubs helps at least a little bit. Any Drew Hutchison, 4,800 today going up against Cleveland?
Bro, when I was updating my spreadsheet last night, I was typing these names in. I was like, Drew Hutchison. I was like, dude, there used to be a Drew Hutchison. That's crazy. It's the same guy. He's back. He's like what? Like, this is not the first. This feels like when we saw that lefty for the Giants earlier this year come back. Drew Hutchison is back in the major leagues. He hasn't pitched in the majors since 2018, I think is the number.
My God.
Like, it's been a minute, so it's hard to kind of like trust anything from Drew Hutchison, especially it's probably the Tigers inning eater. So no, my knee-jerk reactions no, but for the sake of being an analyst, I'll check out his last couple of games in the minors. It looks like on August 11th he went 1.2 innings, and the start before that on the 4th, he did go 5 innings, 5 strikeouts, 6 hits, hit a 1.35 whip. So his whip has been well over 1.3 in the minors. Usually that doesn't stay the same going into the majors, but he's a vet, and it is the Indians, but I don't think I'm getting to Drew Hutch here.
No, I don't really see the need to save that much salary on a complete question mark. So not gonna be my particular cup of tea. I would have assumed that I liked offenses more here. I have the Tigers 12th out of 20. I have the Indians 6th out of 20. Cleveland basically in the same spot in our top stack tool, but showing up as a bit over-owned. Do you have interest in the former Indians, or I guess still current Indians, against our boy Drew Hutchison?
I mean, Jose Ramirez, Franmil Reyes, 260 plus ISO. Those are the obvious ones. Past that, maybe a Miles Straw falls into a lineup, Ahmed Rosario, but it's not that exciting. Looking at Hutchison's splits in the minors, 45 innings against lefties, a 190 average with a 147 ground out to air out ratio. So like he was holding his own, 2 bombs. Yeah. But like the strikeouts, I guess 50 and 45, 36. So he's almost a 1 per 1 strikeout per inning. So he's just like an incredibly average pitcher. Like he's just so he doesn't excite me. And the Indians don't like they're half and half on strikeouts to harder strikeouts. So I really don't know what to do with this game, man. I might just exit out and hope it's the most average game that ever played.
It feels like it's going to be that. Like if you get Ramirez, if you get Franmil Reyes, you're like, okay, I'll try to buy a home run. The rest of this lineup is not particularly fun to roster at all. You know, Miles Straw getting a little bit of ownership, but that's basically just because he's hitting leadoff. That wouldn't happen otherwise. And the rest of the lineup is just sort of ugly. I'm not a big Mercado guy. He's pulling like 7% ownership. That's probably about right. So Cleveland's there. I just think there are going to be better options to find from a leverage perspective or just better options in general. Is there anything for the Tigers, which I assume is going to be a pretty similar statement?
No, I mean, McKenzie does give up power to righties, 236 home run per night so far, 55% fly ball rate. So maybe Miggy adds one to the home run counter at 3K, but those are just chip and chair calls, not really stacking.
Yeah. I don't like this game at all, and I just want it to not exist. You basically said it perfectly.
I don't know about you. It feels like the Indians have played Tigers for like 2 months now. I don't know. I feel like every time I'm chopping up these two teams, it's against each other. Maybe I do
feel like I've been talking about them a lot in ways that I don't really care to talk about them. In particular, the Tigers offense for that stretch. Whenever the Tigers just played the Orioles, and I got really sick and tired of talking about the Tigers and the Orioles. This one feels similar.
Yeah.
All right. 2 promo codes going on right now, everybody. Both good. One better than the other as far as I'm concerned. We'll start with the one that I love. That would be free soccer. If you are looking to get into the Premier League, which came back yesterday. Go Liverpool, by the way. Nice 3-0 win. Use the promo code free soccer. Get yourself a week of Awesemo Plus soccer and get our projections so you can play a little bit of Premier League. Go Tottenham today, by the way, going up against Man City in the Harry Kane Bowl. But now the one that I think most people will actually care about, the promo code is Blitz, and you can see it on the screen right now. 25% off an Awesemo Plus NFL annual package. We don't do a ton of promos on our annual packages, and 25% is a pretty healthy number. This one's not cheap, but you save quite a few shekels by doing this. That's going to be player projections, ownership, top stacks, premium slack, way more. We have a ton of stuff going on behind the paywall for the NFL. You don't want to miss it. So use that promo code Blitz. It's on the screen once again. Now it's on its own. We're really focusing in. We need that solo graphic for free soccer as well. Maybe I'll push that one a little bit harder next time. 25% off for Blitz, guys. Make sure you're using it. And hit that like button. 418 concurrent viewers, only 73 likes. I do not appreciate that ratio one bit. That needs to be a triple-digit number. We need 100. Hit that thumbs up. As we move on to one of the more interesting games for the slate, the Red Sox and Orioles. 6.4 run implied total I've got for the Red Sox, just 4 for the Orioles. Eduardo Rodriguez, Keegan Aiken. How much Keegan Aiken you looking for today?
Can you have -%? How does this work? Because I don't want it.
It's atrocious. Oh, the Marlins and Cubs lineups both just came in. I don't even care to look them up.
Would Jason Hayward change your opinion on anything?
If he went back to the Braves, I'd be really happy because it would make my jersey be useful again. But other than that, nothing.
Yeah, I think that was it. It was Jason Hayward and Andrew Romine at shortstop. So.
Oh, okay. Let's talk. We can skip the Aiken joke for now. Erod is at 35% ownership on DK, 26 on FanDuel. To me, the ownership is pretty much correct. It's a little higher than I would like, but at the same time, this is a great spot.
Yeah, I think I heard Greg kind of mutter under his breath yesterday. You know, Greg hates the chalk, and he went the other way in the Red Sox on the early slate, and they outscored the Vikings or something like so. Yeah, they're just in the zone right now. They're hitting baseballs on a whole different level. That lineup is out, so we don't have to do much guessing. I mean, Hunter Renfroe batting second, a little extra opportunity against a lefty. I don't think we've seen that yet. So this lineup looks pretty doggone dirty. And I'm heavy into it. I think this is a massive upside spot. Definitely, we're gonna get into perhaps playing the ownership game here. I see Stack at 11%. Looking at these prices, I feel like that has some room to go up from the field. It is, and then we start, meditating within ourselves on whether or not 20% from the field is enough to scare us away and failure rates and whatnot. But I really don't see any world where I don't walk into battle with at least 20% of my own having some Red Sox stacks exposure.
Yeah, this is my number one stack today. We have them as number 2 overall on top stacks, but it's basically a coin flip between them and the Rays. Not that I don't like the Rays, but this is my spot. I actually think a couple of these guys are under-owned, but it's going to be interesting to see when the ownership updates. Like, I think Hunter Renfroe's ownership is not reflected upon where he's actually going to be hitting, and that number is going to come up, change my leverage a little bit, but there's nothing that I can say that it's going to make me want to get away from the Red Sox going up against Keegan Egan. This just looks like a great spot, and a 6+ run total explains that one pretty easily. Just got to play them. You just got to play them. They're not. I don't think they're going to get so overowned, especially if the Cardinals and Rays keep pulling that ownership. I think you can just naturally get to Boston pretty easily.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of pessimistic here. I gotta believe Boston. No, I mean like pessimistic in terms of their ownership. I just feel like Boston's gonna get all the ownership. Yeah, by the end of the day. So I think the curious leverage conversation here is the Eduardo Rodriguez, right? Like, he's a guy that is not as consistent, and we've definitely seen him fall flat in some really strong spots. And the Orioles have a couple of spoilers in their lineup. And they're going against not Chris Sale today, so a little bit better of a look at some baseballs here. So he's a guy that if he starts pushing crazy ownership, and right now it looks like 35%, like that's something I can walk back on and feel like, all right, the math. I'm more trusting Erod to not be the nuts than I am the Red Sox stack to drop 15 here.
Yeah, I don't mind getting to like a Mullins, Hayes, Mancini, Santander, Urias stack. It's cheap. There's no ownership coming in. You get on the opposite side of Erod. I don't want to have a ton of the Orioles, but I do think they're going a little underrepresented, especially with that Erod ownership.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you have a personal favorite bat for the Orioles?
Man, I feel like Mancini is such a basic answer, but I'll push back that and say Santander. I don't know what this dude has to do to not be so cheap. But he's consistently like cleanup or better, and he never gets over 2,500. And I just feel like the opportunity for him to get you double digits a little too low. So maybe Santander points per dollar, but Mancini and Hayes are probably the more trendy guys.
Chill Introvert with the super chat. Thank you very much. Just hit that like button. I couldn't agree more. I agree with that completely. So go ahead and do that. We move on to Twins Rays. 4.3 run implied total for the Twins, 5.7 for the Rays. Charlie Barnes, Luis Patino, neither guy pulling any ownership. Is this a spot where you get to either pitcher?
No, I Charlie Barnes. I'm not even. No, Patino. I could understand, like I really could, but I don't think I'd do it. 4.12 expected ERA. I said the Twins breaking my models last night, and I didn't trust it as much as I should have, and they blasted Waka, but in turn it also kind of went to some of the lower leverage arms from the Rays bullpen. And I do think when they're in more neutral game situations that they can chop games down in half. So if Patino does struggle, so I'm not there 8-1 for Patino. Like I feel like there's plenty of plausible pivots at the same price range, and I'm good on Charlie Barnes. And one of the reasons why is because the Rays look like a big old filet mignon up there stack wise to pop off today.
Top of the heap in our top stacks tool, but also pretty significantly overowned. I completely agree. I've got them second overall and dead last in leverage. I'd be happy to have some Rays, but I think they're pulling a little bit too much ownership, in particular, Arozarena and Nelson Cruz at 25 and 30% respectively. What do you do with this Rays stack, given that information?
I don't think I would ever 20% on this size of slate. You're giving up a ton of equity. And I also feel the same. Like, I don't know if maybe I'm just disagreeing with numbers here, because seeing the Rays and the Cardinals so freaking high is just messing with my mind right now when Boston's right there. Like, I want to believe I can get Boston this low, but for some reason I don't trust it. I think I just have exposure to it and hope I have the right combo. I think, we've talked about Elijah Hernandez. If he becomes, like our secret pet play, maybe he's the way we differentiate against some of the chalk and neutralize versus the field. And I think it's pretty easier to do that on these big slates. So I definitely want to be loaded with some Rays in the chamber. I can't full fade it. But I don't know if I'm going to dedicate 20%. The Rays also offer a little bit more volatility because Kevin Cash likes to sub out guys for matchups. But I think a Rosarina, Nelson Cruz, Wander Franco, even Yandy Diaz to an extent, profile relatively safe to kind of get you a full 9 innings of at-bats here. And they're all under 5K. So again, DraftKings has been slapping us with 6K people. It's not happening here, and it's going to be easy to fit them.
You mentioned the Twins from yesterday. Do you go to them today?
Patino does have a little bit of a power problem, elevated fly ball rate, low ground ball rate, and has had a walk rate to lefties. So, I think I do. I think Kepler and them, Rise hit a rare homer yesterday. I wouldn't hold my breath for that curtain call, but I think Kepler and Polanco, I think, are everyday plays. I don't mind a Rise for that price point, though. I do think a couple hits can still satisfy that price point. So yeah, I think I do get to some Twins here. I think Patino is exploitable enough, and if the Rays do pop off, they're not going to get to the high leverage guys quick.
Any more thoughts for Twins and Rays?
No, just that I'm really curious to see where this ownership settles once we get more confirmed lineups out, because I feel like the Cardinals are more likely to lose some steam to the Red Sox, but I just don't believe that the Red Sox are not number one. But what do I know?
I'm sort of with you. We will touch on those Cardinals in a second, but first I would be remiss to not talk a little bit about the sponsor, and that would be Odd Shopper. I say this every time, and I'm going to say it again. If you are betting on sports and you're not using Odd Shopper, you're making a mistake and you're likely leaving money on the table. You shouldn't just run to one book and place your bet. You got to shop around. Some of these books are going to leave stale lines up, and any little margin that you can find is going to be advantageous to you. Sort of like playing in a tournament that has a little bit of overlay or at least reduced rake. It's just going to help you out in the long run to be able to do so. This is the same situation. We also have expected ROI and expected win rates on some of our player props. Just obviously good to see. You can set notifications for alerts on line movement. I said live movement. That wouldn't have been a thing at all. Either way, go to oddshopper.com. You don't have to go to oddshopper.awesemo.com anymore, even though that was something that I read for like 6 months before finding out that we actually just had Oddshopper as a URL. It's always exciting. You get to type a little bit less. They are the presenting sponsor of the show. I am happy to use the product on a consistent basis. It is the first place I go before Ben and I record the breakfast menu Monday through Friday. And it should be the first place you guys are going when you're trying to bet on games. Well, let's talk a little bit about this Cardinals team now. 5.1 run implied total for the Royals, 5.4 for the Cards. Chris Bubich and J.A. Happ. No ownership coming to the pitchers. Obviously, both teams with a 5+ run implied total. Can you roster Bubich or J.A. Happ today?
No, not at all. J. Happ is just not it for me, dog. And then Bubich, I'm out of there on him as well.
Well, then let's talk a little bit about the bats, because this is the place we need to go. Cardinals third in top stacks. They are the most over-owned stack on the slate. And the second most over-owned stack on this slate would be the Kansas City Royals. What do we do with bats in this game if they're all pulling so much ownership?
I trust J. Happ to be a gas can, probably a little bit more than Bubich, if that sounds crazy. Over a 2 home run per night for Happ against righties. I mean, this is a huge spot for Whit Merrifield, Salvador Perez. I felt like that yesterday, didn't really pan out, but I'm right back on the well. 1 through 3 for the Royals, I feel like are professional hitters that can play just about on any baseball team. Rest of the lineup gets a little bit tricky, so you can get me to 1 through 3. I'll talk about the Cardinals here, man. We got them projected at crazy ownership, top number 2 owned. And I'm looking at the general stats. Do you believe in home road splits? First of all,
depends It depends on the park. Like there's certain, like obviously Colorado home and away is a very different experience. But generally speaking, it's not going to be something I'm paying close attention to. Maybe a little bit in terms of power profile. But other than that, it's not something that I'm too worried about.
So Bubic on the season has allowed 17 homers. Or excuse me, on the season has allowed, 17. Only 3 of them are at home. Like that's a pretty big difference here. Almost like a 250 point differential, and in the sample size of innings from home and away are not that staggering difference. And his ground ball rate is high enough to where I can see how Kaufman is playing spoiler at home. Right, he's got a 50% ground ball rate, a sub 30% hard contact rate, 0.57 home run per nine. That's enough for me to not love the 17% owned stack. And if I just split that and give it to Rays and Red Sox, I feel okay. Like if the Cardinals go out there and mash, that's cool. I'm in on, one-off in Goldie and Arenado, these guys, but like the leverage kind of writes itself. And I can point to at least a significant metric to say Bubic can maybe spoil some upside here because his ground ball rate's so high, and Kaufman's been kind of helping him out. 81 degrees, that's not insane. No. So I don't know, I just feel incentivized to push back against the Cardinals ownership more so than the aforementioned Red Sox or Rays.
I'm in the same boat. I have the Cardinals 4th overall, 19th in leverage of the 20 teams. I just want to go somewhere else. I'll go to the Braves. I'll go to more Red Sox. I'll go to multiple other spots that I think are going to be a little bit easier, pulling at least a little bit of leverage. It's not like Bubic or Happ are pulling any ownership to try to sway you here. I think this game is a very easy stay away from stacks for the large majority. Like, I understand why people are going there. This is a great spot. This is a 10+ run implied total. I understand how the ownership is coming in. But if I'm trying to win a large field GPP, it's not coming for me from stacks of this game.
Yeah, and the guys that you want are easily identifiable. Like, you want Goldie, Arenado, Tyler O'Neill against the contact guy, and the top 3 from the Royals. Like, I can get those guys. If I miss out on the Hanser Roberto double dong, then it's on to Monday.
I don't have anything else here. Just keep your eye on our top stacks tool today. Make sure you're keeping an eye on the leverage, because if St. Louis and Kansas City both maintain their spots as 1-2 for negative leverage, that is a highly recommended spot to get away from. Here's a spot where I want some pitching, that's for sure. 4.9 run implied total for the White Sox, 3.7 for the Yanks. Luke Giolito, Nestor Cortez. Giolito at 32% ownership, and I think it's fully deserved, although clearly scary spot against the Yankees. What do you want to do with Giolito at 10,700?
Yeah, almost 11K is pushing it, but he's got an opportunity here to get into a deep strikeout game. 10+ is not outside of the range of outcomes. Maybe Giolito's recency bias is enough to kind of spook us a little bit. He did have a really strong game against Minnesota, and it's like, got blasted by these Royals. So he's a little bit more volatile than you would like at that price point. And then, the Yankees do offer a reason to be scared. And it seems like they're playing with a little bit more energy. But I like Giolito's profile more than I liked Cease's yesterday. Cease is somebody that did have an ability to kind of waste pitches. One of the stats I was given yesterday was a Cease average over 6 pitches per out, and Giolito's under 5.5. So that may not sound like a lot in just one number, but that half adds up over 6-7 innings. And when you're in a jam, you're throwing strikes. So I do like Giolito conceptually, if that's a word. Pushing back a little bit, he does allow some power to righties. Aaron Judge feels like he's pretty locked in. But what I do like about Giolito is he's got some pretty solid breaking ball stuff, some off-speed stuff, sliders, changeup. Anything that's not a fastball will help you get Giancarlo Stanton out at a pretty sizable clip. And then you're just kind of betting on the percentages. And Judge and Gallo, you're good. You can beat them. You can get those strikeouts. So I'm definitely I'm understanding the love here. There's another spot where this 30%, if it starts getting closer to 40%, maybe that's a little too much. So I'm kind of more in for like 20%, because are you going to have no Yankees? Right? Like the Yankees are still And a lot of the damage they've been doing is off of this bullpen. They got Hendricks again last night. Judge took Craig Kimbrell yard. You expect that bullpen to cut games in half, and they're showing up. So I'm on both sides, and I think it's the same spot like Nola, right? I think I'm in on Nola, but I'm also going to have some Reds here. So I'm just going to play both sides and be super lazy Matt Century guy.
Yeah, like if you're going to roster the Yankees, you know what you're hoping for. You're just hoping Giolito gives up dongs. Like and there's infinite power in this Yankees lineup. My question to you is this: do you have any interest in the White Sox against Cortez?
Yeah, I think Cortez is starting to get, I don't want to say exposed, but I think the sample size is starting to show you that he's not a 30% K guy. And he was that guy out of the bullpen in stints where he was coming out in positive lanes. And he's a gimmick pitcher. He has different deliveries and quick pitches and arm slots and stuff like that. His swing and strike rate was never great. He was just catching people off guard. And we've seen his K percentage dip from 30% to almost 26% after, less than a handful of starts. So I do think him being more so a contact pitcher will, I don't want to say contact, but him being less than a 30% K pitcher is going to play. And I think this White Sox team will do its deadliest work against left-handed pitching. After Nestor Cortez, you might expect Lucas Licky to get some run, another lefty. Wandy Peralta also can probably come in this game. It might look a lot like the Field of Dreams game where it was all lefties. And God forbid Zach Britton gets another chance to come into this game and create chaos. So I do think the White Sox could have the benefit of positive at-bats for the entire game. And this might get ugly really quick here on a short turnaround. I think plenty of the White Sox bats are easily justifiable. Just kind of waiting to see what this lineup does come out looking like.
Third highest positive leverage for the White Sox right now. So make sure you're paying attention to those lineups. As we close it out, Rangers and A's, 3.5 run implied total for the Rangers, 5 runs for the A's. Colby Allard, Sean Manaea. Allard not really getting any ownership coming up against this A's team with the big run total. Manaea, 29% owned. I think that's pretty proper given the makeup of this Texas Rangers lineup. What are your thoughts on Manaea? Is he a preferred guy to you? How do you feel about him in comparison to Giolito?
Yeah, I feel like Giolito has a little bit more stability in terms of floor to ceiling. We've definitely seen great stuff out of Manaea. You look at his last couple of games, there's a wide range of outcomes. There's some 3s and some 30s, but the Rangers are the Rangers. They popped the lid on Globe Life. There's a world where he thrives. I think the price point has him a little overpriced, and you contrast that to his ownership at 30%. Like, I don't think at 10-4 Manaea is the nuts at 30%, and that spooks me quite a bit. But I understand it, and value becomes super subjective on these slates. I do think overpriced and overowned, but he's like 20 plus is in the cards here, and 20 plus might give you a puncher's chance.
I know what we're not doing, and that's talking about Colby Allard or Rangers bats today, or at least I think that I'm right. Are you trying to go to any of these Rangers other than, I guess, Nate Lowe?
Wow, bro, we've only done one show, and you don't even know. No, I'm not. I'm not there on Allard. I'm definitely there on Athletics.
Yeah, they're the Texas dead last for me. I had nothing to say. Had to pitch it to you one way or the other, but we got to talk at least a little bit about Oakland. They are 7th overall for me, but they are our number 2 leverage stack. Let's close it out now. What are your thoughts on the Oakland A's for today against Allard?
I think the A's are really doggone good. They're playing important baseball right now. They got to win the games they're supposed to win to keep that wild card spot. Starling Marte's running at will. Yesterday we saw Matt Chapman look really, really good at the plate. Jed Lowry's in a good spot. You got to pay up for the top half there with Marte and Olsen, but I love that correlation as a handcuff. And I don't know if you've seen Marte's game log, but he's trying to be Ricky Henderson for them.
Yeah, it's looking great. $6,100 price tag, and I think that's more than okay to get to today. Only 2% owned, so not the worst opportunity to pay up to be a little bit contrarian. I'm happy to get to the A's, especially with that negative leverage. 10 games up, 10 games down. That was a pretty good one. Let's sum it up for everybody. Favorite stack of the day, favorite 2 starting pitchers.
All right, favorite stack. I mean, it's going to be the Red Sox. Yeah. In terms of like contrarian and leverage, I kind of talk myself into White Sox being in a super plus spot here. And that's weird for me to be on. Pitching wise, I think Eliza Hernandez kind of excites me. Hopefully we keep him at decently to low ownership. And then this Phillies lineup come out yet? I kind of want to ride the Sonny Gray wave here. So Gray, Eliza Hernandez, and then a contrarian White Sox if I'm being a little different.
I love it. The deeper dive is in the books. Let's hit that thumbs up one last time so we can get credit for all the likes instead of the live before lock crew. But make sure you are staying right here, right now. That show is about to start. EMAC, Terry, taking you up to noon, which isn't necessarily locked, but it is the end of the show. Thank you guys for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll talk to you later.
Bye week, or maybe you just don't have great quarterback play and there's a lot of good ones on the waiver wire. You stream them. Why not stream defenses? Every week there's at least one defense with a good enough matchup that you can scoop them up, throw them into your lineup, and not think about it again. It's that simple. But in terms of filling out your roster, your starting lineup, I'm not just talking about kicker and defense. I'm also talking about not people being unwilling to draft, say, a bench player before they fill their tight end spot. So you think about it. If it comes up and there's a big dead zone with tight end, okay, after, there's like Hawkinson and there's Goddard, and it turns into a dead zone. A Higbee I like as well, but you will have a dead zone. If you didn't get to anybody yet, wait on the position and load up on as many players as you can on your bench. Now, I'm not saying don't draft a tight end till the last round, but wait till you have a good spot. Don't reach on a tight end just because you need to fill that spot in your starting lineup where there's guys with much higher upside, higher floor, more consistency, all of that stuff that are ultimately going to be more valuable to your team than a low rate tight end that you just feel like needs to be in that starting lineup. The fourth mistake is taking on too much early round risk. You always hear you can't win without taking risks. You can't win a championship without taking risks. That's accurate, but you don't need to take those risks in the first round. You don't need to take those risks in the second round. There are so many good players in these early rounds that what is the point of saying, man, if this guy pops off this season, I'm going to win? Yeah, same with all of the other guys that are being drafted around him that are almost certain to pop off, barring an injury or suspension or something like that. Take a ton of risk late in the draft where you already have a ton of speculative players. That's the place to do it. Grab a bunch of players that could be in really good spots, that could be your full-time starters come week 3 or week 4. Do that later in the draft or even in the middle late rounds, but not early in the draft. It's so often that people do that and wonder why they're losing. It's because you're grabbing speculative players that we haven't seen do much, and we have no idea if they have that purely definitive role that all of the guys around them do, and then you're surprised when they're not good. Just avoid that. You can take plenty of risk late in the drafts, and that's so much more valuable to bolstering a monster roster that's going to put you in the championship. Mistake number 5, reaching on players or being an outright homer. I get that it's fun to have players on your home team that you root for. Totally makes sense to me. But one approach to take here, and I would recommend this to anybody that's like, yeah, but I do this for fun. I don't need the money. The bragging rights are cool, but I do this for fun and I like to root for my guys. I get that, but you still want to win, right? So the best approach for me, if I'm telling somebody else how to go about this, would be wait on a guy and draft some sleepers on your team that could have big seasons. A good example would be, instead of taking CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper, who, by the way, I love both of them, but instead of reaching, well, I love CeeDee Lamb. I don't love Amari Cooper this year, not at his ADP. Instead of reaching on CeeDee Lamb, because say you're in Texas, and by the way, super unfortunate if you're a Cowboys fan, but that's the way it goes. Say you're in Texas, right? And this is a bunch of Cowboys fans drafting, and you know that they're going to go higher than they should because their ADP is already.
All right, sounds good.
Go ahead and retweet this.
Waiting on an ownership update here. Yeah, I can just tweeting machine things here.
Say, hey guys, in the audience, if you want to retweet this, be happy, make us happy. Maybe we'll give away some free stuff today.
I'll just retweet the one that you retweeted. I like it too. Look at me. Are we supposed to like them, or is that like liking your own stuff kind of a thing?
Oh, I always like them.
Okay.
What?
I usually just
It's
retweet.
like my acceptance speech, you know? Hey, I'd like to thank the little people. I couldn't have done this without myself.
See,
all right. Here we go. Awesemo. It's your old pal Emac along with Terry McBride. No, we did not forget that baseball still starts shortly after 1 o'clock, but we have a rare Sunday 1 p.m. NASCAR start. They are doing the NASCAR at the Brickyard. They're not doing it on the Indy 500 oval. They're actually doing it on the road course race there. I think it's been upwards of 20 years since or maybe even 30 years since they last race there with NASCAR. The problem with that is, and this is all courtesy of Phil B's article, problem with running stock cars on the Indy 500 track, they don't have enough horsepower to get up to the speed. So there's not a lot of passing because it's too wide open. Did you know that, Terry? I did not.
I did not. This is another one of the sports that when I dabble for DFS purposes, it's entirely based on what the site's got to say. I love checking out like Phil's article. I do the same with MMA, and I just trust our top driver tools, our top fighter tools for MMA. Don't need to know too much about the sports. I know enough to be dangerous, just things from osmosis, with tinkering with the cars and stuff over time that has gotten into my head. So I know enough to be dangerous, but I'd rather trust the site and trust Alex's data and everything. And not the biggest NASCAR fan, really, in terms of watching it. I've tried to get into it a few times, but the old, bunch of guys making a left for 5 hours kind of a thing gets me every now and then. But I do like tuning in for the end of races, at least. They're usually pretty fun at that point.
Yeah, there's no point in watching until about the last 20 laps. NASCAR over the last decade has really gotten into the green, white, two start finishes, restarts. It's just a disaster. Don't worry, we're going to talk baseball here in just a sec. We don't have very many lineups in, so we'll be talking a little more theory than we have today. But the other thing Terry was saying is, if you don't know a sport, that's what the Awesemo does. We do the heavy lifting for you. Let someone else do the work and the research. And so I play all the sports, and I don't watch all of the sports. Like NASCAR was one of the ones I sort of gave up. I watched it for a good 10, 15 years, but there's just so many things going on now. But the other sport we have today is EPL. That's the English Premier League. Mm-hmm. And if you use, we're giving away 1 week free to anybody. If you just sign up for your Awesemo account, use the promo code FREESOCCER, you will get 1 week of the soccer content free. So this is a really good deal and something you'll want to look at. So there's still a game that goes off in 22 minutes today for the EPL. There's a little bit of, what shall we say, free or potential overlay on some of the single game contests. Looking at you, FanDuel, looking at you. The other thing we want to mention is promo code BLITZ. That gets you 25% off of our Awesemo full season NFL package. That if you sign up now, you get the preseason, you get all the good stuff, you get it all the way through the Super Bowl, 25% off. That's going to be the best deal we have for the season on that. This is your early bird special. It is not going to last forever. In fact, it is going to expire on August 23rd. All right, Terry, let's get into the show here. We have some interesting things to talk about. No free baseball content. Oh, wait, but there is just no free tools. We've got Terry's tournament strategy and leverage article. This is free. He writes this every day of the week. I'm going to drop that link there into the YouTube chat. And I also write the spotlight pitchers and top stacks every day. How do we avoid some of our overlap in this content? Well, Terry focuses on one, sometimes two teams because he can't help himself. And I always write one stack per slate. So very rarely will we overlap unless it's an amazing situation. And both of us usually say, yeah, you don't need us to tell you to play people in Coors Field. Yeah. Who is your top leverage play today? And then just quickly, just give us a hint, because then we're going to dive into pitchers here.
Top leverage play. Are we talking on the mound, or are we talking?
No, from your article. From your article.
Oh, excuse me. I went with, in terms of stacks, I went with the Milwaukee Brewers. Earlier in the day, they were looking like a pretty positively leveraged stack across both sites. and I'm getting pretty spectacular numbers in my home run model in that matchup that they've got. It's a team that I've spent most of the season not bad-mouthing necessarily, but not really going to, kind of poo-pooing and saying, I don't think they're as good as they may seem on paper. They had a few holes. Christian Yelich has obviously been a disaster all season, but they're better than I've been giving them credit for, and they're just in a terrific matchup against that kid. So I really like that spot. I think we get a nice game out of the Brewers here.
All right, let's get into pitching here. This is where everybody wants to see us start. We did finally get the official word that Elieser Hernandez is going to be starting today for the Marlins. That will be a good spot to talk about. At the top, we've got Aaron Nola. He's got a tough matchup going against Cincy. You've got Lucas Giolito, also a tough matchup going against the Yankees. Strikeouts available in both of those matchups. Sonny Gray, depends how you feel about him. You've got Sean Manaea in there with a great matchup against Texas. Of course, the Rangers are essentially one of the bottom 3 teams in the league now against most pitching because they don't have Joey Gallo, and they really don't have anything else. And then we've got some mix and match guys in here. Eduardo Rodriguez going against Baltimore. You've got Tristan McKenzie going against Detroit, and Drew Hutchison back in our lives. He is going to be going against Cleveland. He will be pitching for Detroit. Let's start at the bottom here, bottom barrels. We have Drew Hutchison today. He has been in AAA this season. He has, his last start was August 11th. He only threw 28 pitches, but I think that was just kind of a final tune-up before they ended up bringing him up here, kind of a throw day on August 4th. He threw 100 pitches. The prior starts 74, 79, 103, 81, 90. So he's relatively stretched out. Our price per pitch is going to be pretty good, Terry. But what happens to those pitches? Well, therein lies the risk. How are you feeling about Drew Hutchison? There's no extra. There's no extra N in there. I keep throwing the N in there.
Is it Hutchison?
It's
Hutchinson with an N.
Nope.
Is this a different guy than the 30-year-old guy who used to pitch?
This guy's the same guy. He will be 31 next week, actually. And this is the Toronto Blue Jays pitcher you are thinking.
Why did it come?
Drafted in 2009 out of Lakeland High School in Florida.
Yeah. I'm looking at him in Fangraphs, and there's no N, but then in the import that I did, he's got an N, which is strange because that's why he's probably not actually popping up in any of the projections for me. Which is to say that I'm not really all that interested in Drew Hutchison. Let me just change it here and see if it'll pop up for me. I'm not really interested in him. I get that, it might be a pricing play, but it's like we're talking about a guy who hasn't pitched in the majors since 2018 and wasn't overly good in the majors before that. 2016, he had a 21.2% strikeout rate in the majors over 24 innings. In Toronto in 2015, over 150 innings. He had a 19.4% strikeout rate, 23.4 over 184 and 2/3 the year before that. But we're talking about a guy, those 2 big samples are from 2014 and 2015. It's just not for me. If you need the salary offset or something like that, but he wasn't on my board at all in terms of somebody that I would consider playing in this on this slate. So it's just not for me. I don't like the idea of throwing him into some of the Indians' power there with Jose Ramirez, Franmil Reyes. I think Ahmed Rosario's a decent hitter. Even, some of the guys later in that lineup, like a Bradley Zimmer, can turn on one against the right guy. So for me, it wasn't really on the board. 5,500 on the FanDuel slate. I didn't need it. 4,800 on DK. If that's your play and you need that salary offset, that's a super, super cheap salary. It's significantly cheaper than most of the bats on DK. I just don't love it. I don't expect much from him here. I don't think he's going to give you many points. I don't think he's going to give you many innings. I think they hang a crooked number on him. So not for me. How much of a share would you have of him if you're attacking that?
Probably a 10%er for me. And it's just going to see if I can't do some double stack premiums here. And it's also a partial fact because of the top end pitching being in not the most easy matchups at all. So I think there's a little more volatility than we normally see in baseball today. The other thing we're seeing is so many of the mediocre pitchers and substandard pitchers are in horrible matchups, but that doesn't mean they can't have a good outing. So today it's going to be chaos and variance. Moving up a little bit on the pricing list, we have Tristan McKenzie here. He's 7,800 on DK, 72 on FanDuel, $33 on Yahoo. He is the power is a little bit concerning let me look him up here. I think he went back down to the minors, if I remember correctly there. So I'm going to pull up some minor league game logs here, courtesy of Baseball Reference. Sometimes it takes a little minute for me to get there. Let's see. So he served time. He was banished back to
depends whose system you're in.
Yeah, for the Columbus California Penal League. He was suspended. Now I'm completely off kilter here. He was playing with the Columbus Clippers there for most of June, kind of to get back on track. He has now made 6 starts in the show. The issue on him here is he was not getting enough strikes, so they wanted him to focus a little bit more on that. Not necessarily strikeouts, but just getting better with his control and issuing less walks. So he's someone that I think is a reasonable play today going against Detroit. Detroit's not horrible. They're probably bottom third of the league, but they're not in the dregs of the league. They're definitely better than the Rangers and say Colorado, etc.
Okay. Yeah. I'll give you that. But I mean, by WRC plus, they're certainly better than those teams. 93 WRC plus, 7% below average creating runs against right-handed pitching.
Now, I want to play Detroit? Probably not.
Right.
They're not a bunny though going against them, but they're not.
Yeah, and they've picked it up, as everybody knows, over the last month and change. They've definitely gotten better. They're actually up to, against left-handed pitching, they're up to a 112 WRC plus, 12% better than average. But overall, like I said, 7% below average creating runs against righties, 3.41% home run rate, and the split is like right around the middle of the league. 159 collective ISO, a little bit behind the curve, not by much. That puts them in the mid-teens. But the concerning part for the Detroit side and the upside part for McKenzie, 25.7% strikeout rate against right-handed pitching, second worst mark in the league. So regardless of some power possibility, there are certainly plenty of strikeouts in this lineup for him. 25.7% on the average for the confirmed Tigers lineup. He's concerning for power, right? If he makes mistakes, he hasn't learned to, he hasn't grasped full control and command yet. So on the control side, he's walking 14.1. On the command side, he's allowing 11.1% barrel ball rate, 45.3% hard hit, 91.7 mile an hour average exit velo with a 22.2 degree average launch angle. That is major home run trajectory, and it comes through in his numbers. In those starts since July 20th, going backward in time, 1 home run, 3 home runs, 1 home run, 2 home runs. So that's a little bit concerning. Guys can definitely turn on the ball. He's got the strikeout acumen. He's got the strikeout upside. I'm a little concerned about the depth. I'm a little concerned about the power. For 7,200 on the FanDuel slate, if you want to take some shots with a cheap pitcher, I think he's probably our best upside guy in that price tier. I do like Drew Smiley, but he costs a little bit more. I do like Eliza Hernandez, but I'm concerned about the depth there as well. I think I trust a little bit more on the McKenzie side of that one. So he's at least on the board as a discount play there. And then for 7,800, I think he's perfectly playable as an SP2 on the DK slate. I don't know how much more than the field I would want to get. Field's around 15%. If I pushed out to like 20, there are other plays. That's the thing. I think I'd probably be around the field on DK with him.
All right. And that makes sense here. And again, we're hoping for survival. That's really it. We're not expecting upside. It's the please don't get crushed, and let's get some bats that are going to do the crushing for us.
That said, he does have the stuff. He is a supremely talented kid. He's got the strikeout stuff to strike out 10 of these Tigers and put up a monster score here. It's just a lot less likely that he does, and it's a lot less likely that he does that while everybody else on the slate goes pop, and he does that to the degree where he's the top scorer. So yeah, just from a game theory perspective, it's a less likely play, but he's certainly got the talent. He's a kid that pretty much everybody universally expects a lot from on the mound over the next few years.
Yeah, that type of unexpected performance is what we call a quantrill.
I like that.
All right, moving on up. Let's look kind of at the top, just hitting on the key ones. I'm going to go through the top 3 real quick here. So you've got Aaron Nola. He is coming in at, 10,000 on DK, 9,500 on FanDuel, 40 on Yahoo. FanDuel and Yahoo giving us a nice discount here. He was dealing against the Dodgers in his last outing before a rain delay capped him at 4 innings. My notes say the Reds offense can be formidable, but Nola is a great deal on Yahoo and FanDuel. The strikeouts, of course, are the currency of the realm in MLB DFS, and Nola is an artiste in that regard. Moving down, and at first I put Giolito higher, but I've decided to go with Nola instead since he does get to face the pitcher. But you've got Giolito going against the Yankees, 3.5 implied run total for them. We're getting this matchup is factored in to the salary. 10-7 on DK, 98 on FanDuel, 47 on Yahoo. Of course, no Anthony Rizzo, but you do have Luke Voigt in there. You've got Judge, Stanton. They haven't put their lineup out yet. They DJ LeMahieu.
I haven't seen. No, it's not up yet. But yeah,
okay, should be leading
in
off.
There. Brett Gardner, superstar number 2 hitter, should be in there. Aaron Judge, Joey Gallo, Giancarlo Stanton. I expect all those guys. One of the power hitters might get a day off. Just depends on what they decide to do out there. But they're a little bbit thin on depth overall, the Yankees these days. So I expect most of those guys to be in the lineup.
All right. So the projected lineup has a 26.4% strikeout rate. Or probably 6 of them have at least a 26.4 or higher across his last 800 batters faced. Giolito almost a 30% strikeout rate. So the nice thing about Giolito is in 65% of these at-bats, he has a first strike. So he puts batters 0-2 almost, or 0-1 almost a third of the time, 2/3 of the time, 14.5% swinging strike rate. Difficult matchup, but not insurmountable. And then finally, we have Eliseo Hernandez here, who is coming in off the 60-day injured list. He has made 3 rehabilitation starts in the minors. He was up to 62 pitches in his last start. He likely could have gone more than just the 5th inning, but he had 10 strikeouts while facing just 16 batters. I think we'll see him in the 75-ish pitch range, maybe 80. As long as he doesn't have one laborious inning, he should get through 5, which would qualify him for the win. Not getting a discount on him on DraftKings at 86, but Yahoo a little more palatable at 38, and FanDuel he is 68. I'm still going to look around 25-30% is going to be my guess. I'm not sure where the field's going to come in. We still have an hour and a half until lock. Among these, does anybody stand out more than the others among these guys for you? I still think it's Nola, but I think we want to do a little hedging on the other side because Nola has been giving up more power lately.
Yeah, so I love Aaron Nola as a pitcher. Put him in a vacuum, he would be my play on this slate. He's projecting out as my second highest projected pitcher. I actually get a better projection on Sean Manaea today going up against Texas. We'll get to him. But I love Nola. I'm just a little bit concerned about the matchup. I don't love throwing teams and pitchers into this Cincinnati offense. They've just been very, very good on the season. Overall, this year against right-handed pitching, they're above average in every category that I talk about. 4.27% home run rate was 5th or 6th in the league, 9% better than average creating runs against righties, a 190 collective ISO against righties, only strike out 23.1% of the time against righties. So they're very, very good. We are talking about one of the better right-handed pitchers in all of baseball. I really like Aaron Nola. He is in my lineup for my first place team in the Dynasty League right now. So he'll definitely be going for me. I got a lot riding on him today. It's just 36 and change ownership on DK, 22 and change ownership on FanDuel. Appropriately priced, maybe a little bit cheap on the FanDuel slate at 95. But like you said, price for the matchup, I don't love it with that much weight. I'll have him. I'll be around the field. If the field's at 22, 25%, and I'm at 15% on Aaron Nola here, I think I'm comfy with that. And I think I can spread it around to some of these other plays, some of these guys that are projecting well for me, but maybe the field's not getting to them quite as much. Maybe the field doesn't trust them. I'm happy to spread those shares out a little bit. So I just don't want to walk down the path with that much of the field on Aaron Nola against that offense that I really respect. But I do think he's got a very, very good shot at putting up a very nice score here. So I wouldn't hesitate to play him. I would go to him in cash games. I think he's a clear-cut play. It's just a matter of how much tournament ownership do I want to be hand in hand with the field on him.
All right. Reminder, use promo code FREESOCCER and you will get 1 week of Awesemo premium soccer content. Definitely want to check that out. Also, promo code BLITZ gets you 25% off our season-long NFL package. If you utilize that now, you get preseason as well. So don't delay that promo code for BLITZ for the NFL package. 25% off expires on the 23rd. And then today we're brought to you by Odd Shopper. We have a new podcast under Odd Shopper. It is Bet You. It's out there on its own channel. It's the Betting You. Like, get it? Betting University because it's college sports wagering. You get Matt Gajewski and Ben Rossa. By the way, you guys forget Ben Rossa has been he gave up the day job almost 10 years ago and has been a sports bettor, then DFS player, also plays poker. He loves going to casinos, and his parents basically took him. His parents, they're gamblers too. Pardon me, handicappers, and they took him as a child to the racetracks every weekend, the horse racing tracks. So we want to count on his news. And then Matt Gajewski is just a wealth of information when it comes to any of the college sports, football and basketball. And of course, he's phenomenal at NFL as well. But they're breaking down all the good stuff for you on some season-long wagering. You know, how can Georgia beat Alabama? What MAC team is going to be the one you want to bet on this year, et cetera. They have all sorts of goodness there, and that's out on the Awesemo Podcast Network. All right, Terry, I tried to delay it. Now we're down to the mid-tier pitchers. They're not priced like mid-tier pitchers.
But we did fly through some of those other guys though before we move on.
Yeah, Sonny Gray.
Okay, keep going.
Sean Manaea.
Yep.
Drew Smiley. Eduardo Rodriguez.
I like all those guys.
You like or are tolerating? I am tolerating today.
I like and think that Sean Manaea and Eduardo Rodriguez are both very good pitchers. Drew Smiley, I will tolerate based on the matchup, and he projects pretty well. I wanted to come back to Eliezer Hernandez real quick because I think he and Smiley are at interesting price points on DK. 8,600 for Eliezer, 8,300 for Smiley, both going up against teams, the Nationals and the Cubs. They were playing each other, and now they're just teams that we like attacking those depleted offenses with pitchers. And we've seen, you know, a lot of weight go to bad pitchers in these spots. I think Smiley, despite his low-end strikeout rate this season, he's struck out a decent amount of hitters in seasons in the past. I think he's got the acumen to do it, and he projects out fairly well for me for a similar cost. I'm just curious where the trust comes from so much for Eliezer, because I do get Eliezer projected a little bit ahead of Smiley as well. I'm just curious where your trust comes from and where like in the pitch count, you're not worried about the pitch count or anything in his start going to him with the weight that you mentioned you would be going to him for a little bit more money. Is Smiley a consideration? Or are you going to have like an equal amount of Smiley on the slate there on DK?
This is looking like one of the slates, and I've talked about it a fair amount of times, probably the 7 or 8 pitchers we've talked about. I'll probably have all of them around 30% caps. I don't really want to go too crazy on them, and then I will see where our final ownerships are coming in, and then I'll go plus or minus 5 to 10% on each one of those numbers, just so I can decide if I want to be a little above or a little below where the field is. So that's something I'll build out as I go through it. And on my dynasty team, I have Hernandez. So I need to remember to activate him today.
Dynamite.
Are you in any dynasty leagues, Terry? Oh, you're in the same one I'm in.
I may or may not be in first place in that league as of this morning. I think I dropped it in before. But yeah, I love your pitching staff in that league. You got Ian Anderson stashed in the minors as well. But go on Hernandez. It's the price point on FanDuel is pretty interesting. It's 6,800. It's another guy like you don't necessarily need to go down to that level, but I think it's at least somewhat interesting for that price point. You can put a lot of different bats together. I'm just concerned about, you know, you drop the quality start most likely. I don't see him getting through 6, even if he's going well, like you said. I think they cap him around 5, even if he's got a handful of strikeouts. But against this Cubs lineup, there's certainly the strikeout upside. I get a couple guys popping for decent power upside. Ian Happ, Patrick Wisdom was, but he's not in the lineup. And then Frank Schwindel hitting second is getting a little bit of a home run kick in my model there if you're looking for somebody totally unowned at 2,000 on the DK slate. But yeah, I think there's at least a little bit on the bone here for Hernandez. It was just curious to me, just, you know, based on where he prices out compared to some of the other options and how you'd have him. Like, is Luis Patino on that same board, on that same list going up against the Twins at 8,100 on DK? Because I think he's interesting in the same range, in the same price.
If Hernandez hadn't been out or been coming back today, it probably would have been Smiley and Patino that I would have ended up on. I'm just kind of hoping that less people will be on him. They're going to see that he's coming off the 60-day DL, and they're not going to go look at his minor league game logs because, you know, people are kind of lazy like that. Guess what? I wrote those up and gave you all that information in my free Spotlight Pitchers and Stacks article that's available every day on the Awesemo homepage, or if it's later in the day, it's under Awesemo Baseball on the baseball page. But I go through and look up all that stuff because I know it's hard to find and it's pain in the ass and all that stuff. So I'm hoping to catch lightning in a bottle. I do not expect more than 5 innings from him. I'm hoping for 5 innings. Sort of the upside would be as if somehow they are ahead and he does qualify for the win. That is nice. I'm hoping for half a dozen strikeouts, and I'm hoping he only allows 1 or 2 runs. So I'm getting you math your way back into 18 to 20 DraftKings points. I just think the matchup's a little bit better than and enough of a discount from Giolito and from Nola. That's where I'm sort of equating him. Like if he was 100% healthy and been pitching all season, he would be our number 1 pitcher right now at that price point.
Oh, yeah. If he was healthy and pitching all season, he'd most likely not be at this price point. But yeah, if he was healthy and pitching all season and at this price point in this matchup, absolutely, he'd be number 1 with a bullet. He's a guy with a decent amount of strikeout acumen, too. I mean, he's been a mid-20s to 30% strikeout guy throughout his career, coming up through the minors. Not necessarily hitting those heights exactly in the major leagues, although 2019, 24.1%, small sample size 2020, he was at 32.1% with only a 4.7% walk rate. So the kid's got some ability. That's without question. And then pivoting over to, I mentioned Sean Manaea for me as my top projected pitcher. I was hoping he'd come in a little bit less owned given the 9,600 price tag on FanDuel, 10-4 on DK. Also not really keeping any ownership away, but I love the spot here from Manaea going up against a really depleted Texas Rangers club. I think there's every reason to get to him. They have a 2.16% home run rate in the split against left-handed pitching. That's the second worst team home run mark against either hand, second only to Arizona's 2.09 against righties. So they don't hit any home runs. They are 26% worse than average creating runs against left-handed pitching. They have a collective 115 ISO. That's the worst mark in the league against either hand. So I had to check that as I was saying it, but so Texas worst for power against either hand in terms of ISO, second worst overall against either hand in terms of home runs. They are capable of limiting strikeouts, 21.6% strikeout rate, one of the better marks in baseball against lefties. But Manaea's got strikeout upside, strikeout acumen, and there's just not much threat in this lineup. 26.7% strikeout rate for Manaea over 23 starts, 128 2/3 gives you good depth. 3.45 xFIP, 12.4% swinging strike rate. Limits, is a little bumpy on the contact, a little worse than you'd like to see. I think it was like 44th percentile hard hit at 39.7%, but he doesn't get damaged all that badly. And there's just, again, no real threat coming back at him here. So I really like the spot from Manaea. I was hoping he'd be less owned, but he projects out as my top pitcher. I'll have probably exceeding the field on him on this slate, I would expect.
All right. I see Eric Johnson. Team Eric asking in the chat, is there any promos for MLB weekly passes? I believe there is one for the Awesemo 1 week pass. I think it's still promo code MLB Live Before Lock. That will get you 25% off 1 week. There's not a specific baseball weekly discount only. We don't throw the discounts around that lightly. So when we do them, we try to make them appropriate and a push for people to get on in there. But MLB Live Before Lock will get you 25% off 1 week of Awesemo full access platinum. The other thing you guys can always remember is we do have the Awesemo Avatar contest, where if you finish top 3, that's top 1, 2, 3, not ties, 1, 2, 3 in any contest with 5,000 entries or more. Follow the instructions, give us a screenshot on Twitter of you using the Awesemo avatar and winning, and send that to Awesemo_COM and Awesemo HOF. That's Awesemo Hall of Fame, and we'll get you 30 free days of Awesemo premium content. We had a little Hall of Fame winner last night. I had a nice little night, nice little 3-figure night. I'm doing pretty well, up about $1,500 since the All-Star break. I'm happy with that. I send Terry screenshots every now and then. I've refrained from doing that, but I had a nice little run going on last night. And then Terry, of course, had to drop the mic this morning and let me know that he got third in the squeeze on FanDuel for a cool $3,000.
Nice little.
That would be a 4-figure win. That's much better than a 3-figure win.
Nice little finish, solid little 10x day. I was annoyed. I was in second place for like 3 hours. I was locked out of first. We had both finished, and the guy had most of my plays in the last couple innings, so couldn't get to first. But I thought I had a decent shot at second until Ty France decided to do whatever Ty France did in the bottom of the 8th to have that guy jump ahead of the last 2 people, me and the other guy, by 2 or 3 points. So third place, I'll take it. And nice day. You know, it was third and a handful of them in the top 50 there. So nice day, solid lineup building, hoping to repeat the trick today.
All right, super chat here from Chill Introvert. He is not being an introvert. He wants to remind you to do not forget to hit that like button with the little steam coming out of his nostrils. So clearly not an introvert at this point. But thank you for that reminder. Let's show Josh Engelman that we can get likes, much like him. Let's see here.
We get them without like selling our souls for them. We don't have to beg. People just, we don't have to rattle the change cup. People just walk by and toss the change in, toss us the likes. They like us. That's all. And Josh is out there doing backflips and stuff for him. He's got the little dancing monkey. He's playing 3-card Monty.
Yeah.
Just different styles.
Casual buskers, just going about our business. Throw a little change in the hat. That's all we're asking for.
So you're not concerned about Lucas Giolito's 32% ownership at a $10,700 price tag against my powerful New York Yankees lineup?
Yeah, because I'm playing both sides. This is a both sides day. It really is. And Gundocker had a nice point. He said, if I'm taking the easy way out doing the 150, I can leverage against myself. That's true. And this is the only sport you can do that. You start doing that in football, you start doing that in basketball. It doesn't work. It's not designed to be a sport like this. You need the variance. You can do it a little bit in hockey. You can do it a little bit in some of the esports. But you can definitely do it in baseball. And that's what makes baseball unique. And if you're willing to embrace that and understand that, that's how you can become profitable. Because if you're playing all these slates and all these sub-slates, these little edges add up. And at the end of the season, once you've done 190, 200 days worth of it, which will work out to about 300 slates, the edge just adds up over and over and over again. And at the end of the year, you can be looking at several $1,000s. Whereas at NFL, even if you're playing all the slates and everything, you're getting 50 or 100 if you start count even. And that's when you're starting to count the showdown slates too. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's for me, it's probably going to be a both sides one. I'll probably come in both sides, undercutting the Giolito ownership and loading up on some of the Yankees just because of how low owned the Yankees are projecting, which I think is a mistake. It's something we've talked about throughout the season. It's something that pays off when you do it. Just going to good teams, good offenses, and I know people have their issues with my Yankees and their offense, but we know about all the power in this offense, and we'll talk about some of the rest of the upside. But just going to good teams with major upside and big, wide ranges of outcomes with power hitters like these is going to be a winning play over time when they're this under-owned. So teams like the Astros, teams like the opposing White Sox here, even the teams like the Yankees. So we've talked about this throughout the season, and it's a spot where it's becoming apparent again, up against a good pitcher who is got a great shot of shutting him down. But you can't tell me that the Yankees don't have, at least an equal shot of putting up a few runs on Lucas Giolito here. You mentioned the strikeout rate that the Yankees have. And Lucas Giolito, 27.9% strikeout rate and 30%, I think you said, over the last 5 games. I'll also point to Lucas Giolito, 7.1% walk rate, not the highest by any means, but a little higher than you'd like for an ace caliber pitcher. And the strikeout at 27.9 is a little lower than you'd like. The Yankees, for all their strikeouts, are one of the better teams in baseball at drawing walks as well. Starting from the top of the projected, 10.6, 13.9, 11.4, a league-leading 19.1 for Joey Gallo, and a 12.9 for Giancarlo Stanton. Those are all walk rates. So the Yankees are good at drawing the walks. They can exploit a little bit of a heavier walk rate on a guy like Giolito if they're patient. If he's missing spots, they can put guys on base and start generating some hits or generating or getting one of those 3-run homers and put a bendy number on them pretty quick. So Giolito doesn't come out in my BBB minus K metric for sequential hitting and run creation quite as well as some of the other premium aces do, just because the walks are up a little bit. The strikeouts aren't quite at that 30+% range. The barrels are at 7.1%. So there are a few things around the edges, but overall he's a very good pitcher. 35.3% hard hit rate. So he does a good job limiting that. 14.7% swinging strikes. I'm with you. I'm going to both sides this one for sure. I like the price 9,800 on FanDuel better than the 10.7 on the DK slate, but I'll be under the field.
All right. Let's see. We're targeting lefties today, right? That's kind of how it's going to work. The Red Sox against Keegan Aiken. We've got the Athletics against Colby Allard. We've got the Cardinals against Chris Bubic. You've got the White Sox against Nestor Cortez. It doesn't stop there. You've got the Royals against J.A. Happ. And technically the Brewers going against Dylan Peters is a lefty, right?
Yes.
Yep. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I love that.
I had Steven Brault in my mind. I think they're just skipping him in this start, Terry. I can't figure out
right.
what happened.
We had talked about that we had Steven coming up after our debate about him the other day. That's funny. Yeah, I can't believe he scratched. But yeah, I mentioned that the Brewers are really popping for me. They're at the top of my home run model today, the top of my power index. We do have the confirmed lineup in now, so they do have Christian Yelich in there. He's been struggling against left-handed pitching, but left-handed pitching, not all lefties created equal. Christian Yelich, I think, is still a good play on this slate. Overall on the season, 232, 373, 350 with a 118 ISO, only 6 home runs and 303 plate appearances. Not a Christian Yelich season. At least he's still getting on base, though. Solid on base percentage there at 373. Still drawing a ton of walks, 17.5% walk rate. So I don't mind Christian Yelich. Love Avi Garcia against the lefty. I think he's an underrated player, and particularly against the lefty. You can get to Lorenzo Cain in there. Manny Pena, if you need a catcher, is a powerful bat anyway. 172, 268, 396 leaves a lot to be desired, but a 224 ISO, 9 home runs and 153 plate appearances, a totally unknown cheap catcher. Colton Wong, Willie Adames, Eduardo Escobar up at the top, like all three of those guys. So I'll be getting to these Brewers pretty heavily. Looks like the ownership's come up a little bit on FanDuel, not that much on DK. So I preferred a little bit more on DK, where they're super expensive and difficult to roster. That's the only concern over there. But I really like that spot for the Brewers, which is not something I've said a lot this season. And then, yeah, to your point, there's just not only are there a lot of lefties, but there are a lot of targetable lefties, and you name most of them today. But 11 out of the 20 pitchers, I think, today are left-handed pitchers, and several just major gas cans in addition to Peters. I don't think that much of Nestor Cortez, despite the fact that he's pitching for my team today. 43 in the third innings, spit all over my microphone. 43 in the third innings, 26.4% strikeout rate so far, 3.5% barrel ball rate, both excellent marks, but I don't think he's that pitcher in reality. So I expect the White Sox are going to put something on him here. There's just too many high-end power bats in that White Sox lineup. Too many guys like Jose Abreu, Eloy Jimenez. Andrew Vaughn even is having a very good year. Luis Robert hit a home run yesterday, had a nice day. None of these guys are projecting for all that much ownership. I'm not really sure why. I don't think the field is respecting Nestor that much. Maybe, and it doesn't look like they're getting to him despite the cheap price. So I don't really know why nobody's rostering White Sox, but I'll be happy to do it if the field doesn't.
All right. So, sports wagering, legal in many states. Many are on tap. One of the biggest edges you can have is always shopping to find the best lines. Betting lines change by the minute, and they vary greatly depending on which book you are using. That's why it's important to utilize the Awesemo Odd Shopper to find the best line available for the game or player prop that you are wagering on to get that edge to help you beat the house. You can check that out at awesemooddshopper.com. You've also got the Awesemo player props. I'm going to drop the link into chat for that. One thing that the different sites do, and especially as we head into NFL here, they give you a lot of free bets and promo bets, and they did a ton of them during basketball. They haven't really done that many during baseball. They were starting to do some of the every team with the name of a mascot with a bird wins, and you get 8x whatever you bet, right? So they just do silly parlays and stuff like that. But I've been getting some free bets here. So I had one last Sunday and I wagered on the Nationals. That was the only game I wagered on Atlanta against the Nationals. That was the only game the Nationals have won. They lost 5 games coming into that, and they've lost their last 6.
That's what you get for betting against your adopted team. That's what happens.
But I have another $10 ticket today, and I'm trying to decide, do I go with the Braves who owe me because they blew the save in the 9th to allow the Nationals to win 3-2 in last Sunday, or do I look elsewhere? So I'm going to utilize the Awesemo odds to kind of poke around on some of this. Now that my ticket's just at DK, but you can definitely shop odds and do some other fun stuff with Odd Shoppers. A lot of fun with the player props. And as we get into NFL, the nice thing about Odd Shoppers and player props is you will find running backs tend to, across the different sites, will have plus or minus 10 to even 20 yards for their per carry in-game yardage. Quarterbacks will have sometimes as much as 35, 40 yards differences on the other sites, but you need to understand that sometimes you're paying for that, because even though the number's better, you're paying more to win the same amount, and that's shopping the odds. So you need to look into all of this, and Ben Rossa and Matt Kajeski do a great job of explaining this, as does Greg, as does Eric Lindquist, because those guys are doing the wagering all the time. I'm learning from them. It just became legal in Virginia here just before the Super Bowl, so I'm learning along with them. I already understood the concepts, but now I'm understanding the nuances and finding those little edges, because let's face it, the books are sharp. And they don't build those gigantic buildings and casinos over and over. out of the goodness of their heart.
Very true. Very true. That's one of my father's old adages. I think he told me that every time I've ever traveled to Las Vegas. They didn't build all those big hotels by giving away money. Thanks, Dad. I know. So the Atlanta Braves, who you just mentioned as a potentially good bet, I was looking at them for DFS purposes as well. Matchup against Paulo Espino here, nothing really to worry about there. 67 and a third inning, 17.8% strikeout rate for him, 4.79 xFIP, 8.1% induced swinging strike rate, allows 11.7% barreled balls. He only walks 4.4% of hitters, which is saving the day and pushing him into 1.7% mark in my BBB minus K, which anything over or anything under like 10 makes you pretty targetable. A lot of these bad pitchers trend into negative numbers, so he's super targetable here. 44.1% hard hit rate. He's going to put guys on base. These Braves, ton of power in that lineup. I get solid home run marks on 5 of the hitters in that 8-man lineup, so I like this lineup up and down. You can definitely stack Braves here, and I wouldn't mind making a bet on them either. I like that call.
All right. They were the one team going against the righties that made my list.
Let's clean up something real quick that's going on in the chat as well.
Sure.
Do not fade Sean Manaea just because somebody in chat said that the umpire doesn't call that many strikes. First of all, Sean Manaea has more than enough ability to induce swinging strikes against this team. Do not go away from Sean Manaea because some guy named Pozo is in the lineup and costs $2,000. I know he has 19 home runs and 280 plate appearances at AAA and 1 home run in 8 plate appearances in the majors this season, but he is not a power threat. 30 grade game power in his traditional scouting metrics. That's on a 20 to 80 scale, so 30, not good. 50 grade raw power, so maybe that's coming through a little bit, but this is not the kid to make you fear playing Sean Manaea here, guys. So don't get caught up in the nonsense going on in chat.
And as a bonus, Sean Manaea has the Athletics are over 2-1 favorites to garner the victory. So that would be Sean V for victory, Manaea.
You're the 14-run Rangers game.
Well, we'll see. I don't think I'll be playing many on the other side of that one. However, the 4 o'clock slate the 2 o'clock slate is absolutely loaded with those 4 teams because 5 of my favorite stacks are in amongst those 8 teams in the 2 o'clock slate. So some of my pitchers are going early, some of my hitters are going late. So we'll have a fun day.
That's why I like Manaea at least too, because he's in that last game. So you get a little bit of you get a little pitcher bump in that from that last game too, and you can sneak up on some people hopefully. So that's yet another little nod to Sean Manaea there. We got the Yankees lineup in. Looks like Brett Gardner in the 2-hole again. Had a nice day for us yesterday, but that is just inexplicable why Brett Gardner's hitting in that spot in this lineup. I do not understand it. I think maybe Boone's betting against the team, pulling a Pete Rose. I really don't get why Brett Gardner's in the 2-hole, but I think he's playable there for 2,200 and no ownership on the FanDuel slate, 2,700 and no ownership on DK. If they keep rolling him out in that spot ahead of all these power hitters, you can play him. 324 on base percentage this season, not getting on base nearly as much as you'd like, but in that spot, he has the ability to get on ahead of those guys. So it's just a correlation play. I don't hate that. And then Judge, Gallo, Stanton, LeMahieu, all those guys are in the lineup before it gets to overrated Luke Voit, terrible Rougned Odor. Kyle Higashioka with his reasonable pop as a catcher. You could sneak him in at no ownership. Not a huge play in terms of ongoing sustainable upside or sequential hitting or anything like that, but does have decent power and can turn on one. Tyler Wade, kind of an afterthought.
It's our favorite game, Terry. We played this last year. We're going to play it this year. Brett Gardner. What positions has he not batted or hit from in the order?
Oh man,
so far this season.
Clean up.
Is
that it?
That's it.
Unreal.
He has literally hit first, second, third, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth.
That is unreal. I mean, I love Brett Gardner. His longest tenured Yankee. He's been on the team forever. I've got a Brett Gardner t-shirt with his 11 on the back of it, but
he's turning 38 in 11 days.
Right. Yeah. And like, I know
10 days.
Yeah. And he'd been on the team and continued to hit and was good for 20 home runs. His speed is mostly gone at this point, but the hit tool's gone now. The speed's gone. The power's gone. I do not understand what he's still doing here. He can barely play the outfield anymore, so he's not even a viable backup center fielder, really. Yeah, the time is over for Brett, but if he's in the lineup at this price, in that spot in the lineup, you can definitely play him. I just don't get what they're doing.
All right, let's talk some. They're asking for some cheap FanDuel stacks, but let's get into home runs first, because I think this is how you could get to some potentially cheaper type stacks. I have so many home run calls. I have a list of 5, and it's actually teammates. Now, I made this before everybody, before we got a lot of these lineups, so I have to see if some people are in. But my number 1 home run call today is Hunter Renfroe. He's actually batting 2nd. I also like Bobby Dalbec, who is batting 7th. Dalbec has he's seeing the ball well, because he has a couple home runs over this series already. So I think he had 2 last night, or maybe it was 2 the day before. They're all kind of running together for me. Though I like those guys. I think the Tim Anderson, Jose Abreu is a good one. Nelson Cruz, and your favorite, Randy Arozarena. Did I roll my R? I tried. I practiced that this morning. I'm not very good at that. The only thing worse than my pronunciation is my accent when it comes to my high school Espanol. We've got Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado, 2 of the best in the game against lefties. And then I'm hoping we get a little Yan Gomes in the lineup for. Did we get that one yet? For we don't have Oakland's lineup, but I'm guessing he'll be batting, or he'll be at the catcher spot. And then you've got, of course, Matt Olson, who has, I don't know, like a 370 isolated power in his last year and a half against fellow lefties. Just so play him.
Love Matt Olson. One of my favorites in the league for power, and a frequent go-to home run call. Got one for us yesterday on my home run call. My call today was from the Brewers. I mentioned their power metrics are just shooting through the roof for me. And I mentioned this guy is very good lefty, going righty-lefty. That's Avisel Garcia. Also get very good home run marks on the rest of the Brewers. Willie Adames, Eduardo Escobar in there. First non-Brewer on the list is Nelson Cruz. I got Franmil Reyes popping, Matt Olson, Eloy Jimenez. Joey Gallo's got some power marks here. But getting a lot of Tampa, a lot of Milwaukee up toward the top of the board, and then some mix and matches from some of the names you'd expect to see. Sal Perez is up there. Tyler O'Neill's up there. I do really like both of those Red Sox calls in going to Hunter Renfroe and Bobby Dalbec, maybe 2 of the less obvious names in that lineup, just in not being Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, or JD Martinez. So you get a little bit of ownership offset by going to those guys. Dalbec is a kid. He's on my team on the Dynasty League, stashed in the minors for right now. Second on the team, 17.1% barrel ball rate on the season, 42.8% hard hit rate. Titanic power for the kid. 14 home runs in 328 plate appearances. The contact needs to come around a little bit. The hit tool needs to come around a little bit, but 210 ISO. Love the power upside for Bobby Dalbec. So, yeah, I can get with that one as well.
All right. Well, my guy who's not in the minors in that same league, Akil Baddoo, turns 24 tomorrow. Just wanted to throw that out.
Well, happy birthday to you, Mr. Baddoo.
Sadly, no notable birthdays for today. Let's see here. Let's look at let's start ranking some stacks, and we'll get on out of here. We, of course, have the NASCAR Live Before Lock coming on after us. That will be Jason Floyd and Phil B coming at you here. So we're going to sign up in about 4 minutes and give them time to set up that show. Of course, we'll be in the Slack chat in another hour plus until MLB Lock. Terry and I are always happy to answer questions. That's one of the benefits you get with any Awesemo subscription. You get access to our premium Slack channel. We've got a couple. We have the T McBee study group, and then we have DFS 101. And they're not just private channels. Anybody can join them, but it's where we help out newer gamers learn different nuances, go over fantasy cruncher settings, game selection, all the tricky stuff that we've learned over the years in DFS. So Terry mans those. I pop in every now and then on the weekends, and sometimes late at night when I'm late, or watching games when I can manage to stay up after 10 o'clock. You'll see me post some diatribes in there, but it's definitely a lot of fun. But we're here to help everybody here, and that's the nice thing about Awesemo. There are many ways to skin a cat. There are many different people that you want to listen to, and you want to have different voices that excel in different things. If you're looking at baseball, well, probably Terry and I are pretty good at that. If you're looking at something else like NASCAR, definitely it's going to be Phil. If you're looking for MMA, it's going to be Pete the Heat Rogers. So we have all sorts of people that can help you from a variety of ways. All right, Terry, kind of hit us with your top stacks. There are many. Any team facing a lefty starting at 2 o'clock in Boston. There's my top stacks.
So I'm curious about that one, actually. Are you getting to any of the Orioles going up against Eduardo Rodriguez here? They're kind of like middle of the road for me, but it looks like there's a little bit of positive leverage. Eduardo's been pitching very, very well under the covers, but he has had issues with BABIP and earned runs this season. Overall, 3.34 xFIP, but his ERA, I believe, is still well over 5. Strikes out 29.3% of hitters, but puts guys on base 1.38 whip via the BABIP. So are you getting any Orioles on the other side of them as a low-owned stack?
I definitely will, and it's nice to not go up till locked, you guys. I'll still be scrambling to get my upload in, but I'll have a full hour to craft this. I'm playing tiers, and I'm playing the turbo slate, and of course I'm playing NASCAR. So I'm going to be busy behind the scenes, but this will give me time to not muck around and end up having to run a bunch of 5-0 stacks because I'm on the show and I get to my stuff late. So today will be a conscious effort to definitely get some Baltimore Orioles in there. It's a warm one in Fenway. I'm going off top of my memory, but I think it's going to be in the low to mid 80s with like 60% humidity. When I wrote up that helps both teams. Eduardo Rodriguez, while he is a solid pitcher, he never quite capitalized on the talent he showed about 5 years ago. He's still good. He's still a number 3 starter in anybody's rotation, a number 2 in some of them, but his inconsistency tends to rear up. And don't forget, he was dealing with, I think it was migraines that shortchanged him in that Yankee start. And then I think it impacted him in the start after that. So migraines, super hot weather, dehydration, those are things that do not go well together. So there's always a chance.
And like I said, he's been better than it seems like on the back of the baseball card, but he's drawing a ton of ownership. He's cheap, so it makes sense that he's getting ownership. I will have some of them, but I expect I'll be under the field on him. And then I expect, just based on they're an extreme value play in terms of the Baltimore stack, they're positively leveraged. They're not one of the top ranked teams by any means. I expect, if I was betting on it, I would expect Eduardo to shut them down. But I think just based on the value, based on the leverage marks, they're at least in play because you can attack a pretty good section of the field by getting to them if they happen to get to Eduardo. And they're one of the better value plays in terms of positively leveraged teams. Like the Royals have a good value mark on DK, but they're at -5 leverage. The Cards, -6 leverage. They're at a 12 value, so they've got an extreme value. But those are the teams. Those teams are all going over owned, where the Orioles are sneaking through under owned because of the weight on Erod. Other teams that are less value but positively leveraged, I like Oakland. I've mentioned Milwaukee several times. I like the Braves. We went through them. The White Sox, extremely expensive but positively leveraged. I like that spot going up against Nestor. So it's a lot of the teams that we talked about, and just going down the top stacks board here, it's a lot of the teams that rank out well. Tampa Bay, I think, is an excellent spot today, but they're just extremely, extremely owned. They project out very well for me, but they're just difficult to get to in unique combinations. So we'll see where we come down on those. But I think those are going to be some of the focus stacks, is where we're getting some positive leverage around some of these teams. And I love the marks that Milwaukee's at. I've talked them up way too much today. There's no way they come through for me at this point, but I really like them.
All right, we are going to get on out of here because we have NASCAR Live Before Lock coming up next. NASCAR's not your cup of tea. One, this is a good race to check out. It's one that there's not a lot of data on, so there is an edge, and Phil B can definitely give that to you. We got 600 people here watching. Thank you for coming in on a Sunday. Reminder, we did have the Josh Engelman and Gundacker broke down everything game by game. If you want to rewatch that, you still have another hour, or perhaps you want to get into football here. We've got the Awesemo YouTube channel, Awesemo Fantasy Football. Check that out. Subscribe to that one. There's constant there's putting out about 5 videos a day on that channel, breaking everything down for best ball, regular drafts, all the different scoring types, mock drafting, different strategies, sleepers, must picks from the different rounds, etc. That is done by mostly Laffy D and Matt Justine. We have a half dozen other contributors on there. Check that out. With that, gamers, good luck.